Who are those playing the game of the black market? Go to the black market and you realize that most of them cannot even speak English. You have to communicate to them in Hausa or Twi or some other language or Gogo English. Yet they have become better managers of the forex market. And we have people with all manner of degrees from all manner of world-leading universities who cannot actually perform. So sometimes it brings to question the practical essence of education in our policy imperatives. We may have to try someone directly from the kitchen, or a fisherman or farmer, so to say, as president in this country, and apply some home wisdom to governance. And let's see how it goes. In all of these things, the anger is that politicians will blame Russia and Ukraine. Yes, in the global political economy, you cannot take away the impact of global crisis from domestic happenings. However, there is always a bar that serves as the yardstick in measuring the efficiency and efficacy of a particular regime. And so, no other country should suffer more than Russia and Ukraine, who are, in fact, let's leave Russia out. Ukraine is the vulnerable party of the war. Ukraine actually says that their currency is stable, their food market is good, and that they can feed the rest of Africa. Yeah. Ukraine. Yeah. The background of the current Ukrainian president, you know, he's a comic. Yeah. He's a comedian.
He was a comedian, yeah.
He remains one. From fooling for people to laugh to presidency. And his country is better than Ghana and Africa. Look, let us cut down the unnecessary importations of things we don't need. Toothpicks, all manner of chicken thighs and chicken meat that no longer tastes like meat. Even matchsticks to light a fire is from China and Taiwan and Indonesia. Sugar is still imported heavily. Rice, when we have a lot of waterlogged areas in northern Ghana where we can produce rice and feed. Research have actually proven way back in 2018 that Ghana alone can produce rice enough to feed the whole of Africa. So what is stopping us?
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and
a very good morning to you wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. We are live from the studios of Pan-African Television this morning. It's a Saturday morning and we come your way today with another edition of the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, live on Pan-African Television on our social media platforms, live on Facebook, Pan-African Television, and live on YouTube, Pan-African TV. You can get us on either of those pages. If you're watching us via Facebook or YouTube, please do share your comments. I'll read them as we continue with the show. But thanks very much for joining us. My name is Sena Nombo. The show is live on Radio Gold. Let me also say a big thank you to Ahunto 92.3 FM. In fact, this morning we just got a new addition to the radio stations that are currently tuning to us. And the new member of the family is called Lamaraya FM in Tripoli. So a good morning to everybody listening to us on Lamaraya FM in Tripoli. Also a good morning to everybody listening to us on Shine FM Akachi 96.9, Eos FM Adaklu 91.7, Nyawasi Radio, Ketekrati 89.7, Sela Radio in Dabala is on 97.1. Diamond FM in Tamale 93.7 is the channel they are on. Bewa Radio is on 106.5 in Yendi. We have Radio Kitawan Saboba on 95.7. Benya FM in Elmina on 105.7. Global FM 105.1 is in Ho. Volta 1 TV is the other television station we are live on in Ho. We're also live on Zebs FM 95.9 in Zebila and True FM 92.5 in Adeso. So once again, a good morning to everybody listening to us on Lamaraya FM. I understand that means faith in the language in Tripoli. Good morning to all of you. And thank you very much once again for joining us. And the fact that there's more to pay for every day. This time around is utilities. The PRC announced 27.55. Well, the minority says, hold on a minute. That is if you do an average, strike an average between non-residential and residential. But if you look at residential alone, if you are a residential customer, you are paying no less than over 28%. That a former chief executive of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation is warning us about. That we may be looking at fuel shortage if the bulk oil distribution companies are unable to come up with dollars to continue buying for 10.20. That is how much the BDCs are getting the dollar for. And they are benchmarking it at over 11 cities. So for how long can they continue before we get to the point where there's a shortage? So we're talking about hardship. President Akufo-Addo says he's looking up to God. He has a lot of faith in God. And what is impossible for man, God will do. So that's our very first discussion. And then we would move to the issue of Hobson Adoye's comments as what has been under discussion. Now, a lot of people have listened to those comments and have said it's ethnocentric, it's tribalistic, condemnable, and even the person on whose platform he supposedly made those statements has distanced himself from that statement, called himself a peacemaker. He says that every time there is an NPP ticket, there's somebody from the Nombo tradition on it. That is the tradition. But the Flagbeership is always a tussle between the Dankwa tradition and the Busia tradition. So the Dankwa tradition has had their turn. All they have to do is pass it nicely to the Busia tradition. And he believes Alhaji Chairman is the representative of the Busia tradition. Well, we'll be talking about that and what that means to the Flagbeership race of the new Patriotic Party. And then we'll end in Kenya. Last week when we were ending the show, we were discussing whether or not William Ruto will be confirmed as president, because all indications showed that he was in the lead. Well, he was able to garner the votes to be named the president of Kenya. But, well, old habits never die. Raila Odinga says no. He disagrees. He will not accept the results. So we'll be talking about the aftermath of the Kenyan elections in our very last topic of discussion. Joining me this morning, as usual, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jnr, who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. And sitting close to him and coming closer to me is Mr. Fii Quartey, who is a former Minister for Transport, former Minister for Agric, former Deputy Minister of Finance, and also a former Member of Parliament for Ketu South. And then we do have Mr. Solomon Owusu in the studio with us. He's a member of the new Patriotic Party's communications team. A very popular man. And then close to me and sitting right to my left is Gabriella Tetteh, who is joining us this morning. That's my panel for this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Like I said, be an active part of the show. Share your comments with us. We'll read it. Well, let's start with the discussion on the issue of hardship. And I'll start with Gabriella Tetteh and go around. Good morning.
Morning to my senior co-panelists and to our viewers. and to remind NDC Ashanti region that the branch registrations is still ongoing. There's a massive membership drive for the next 3 weeks in Ashanti region. I want to entreat all Ashantis who have lost faith in Bawumia and Alan Chairmanting to register for the NDC membership and to help kick out the NPP government. Sena, the hardship this last couple of years is very real. It's as if there's an entire government policy driven to enforce hardship on the poor Ghanaian. This morning, I woke up and I saw a post, a reminder, when Vice President Bawumia at 5:58 on the 27th of May, 2012, posted that inflation is like a tax on the Ghanaian, and that it makes it difficult for businesses and individuals to plan. Today, under Bawumia's watch, I've deliberately refused to add the vice because I don't think right now he warrants that position anymore. Under his watch, inflation as of June was 31.7%. Currently, as we speak, our dollar has crossed the 10 and is inching towards the 11 Ghana cedis to a dollar, and it appears there is no hope in sight on how to arrest the dollar. When they came to office, he was the one who was bragging about how he has arrested the cedi and given the key to the IGP, and unfortunately the IGP went on retirement, and that was the end of our poor cedi and the dollar. Now as it stands, the dollar has bolted, the cedi has become, to use Bawumia's phrase again, a Medonyami exchange rate. When you look at I'm sorry, but when you look at that graph, it's just going up in a hurry to get to heaven before all of us. I'm laughing, but it's not a very funny spectacle that we are in. Sometimes you just have to laugh to do away with the stress and the tension that is hovering over all of us. But it is real, and it is very depressing. And to add to our woes, the utility companies have also come with their tariff increments. And during the week when the PURC issued a statement, they mentioned that utility tariffs, electricity was going up by 27.1%, 1.15%. And then water is going up 21.55%. I was on a platform with them. I've been very active this week in my media engagement, and you hear the NPP communicators, I hope you won't come and repeat the same thing, say that you were increasing the utility every year. We have not increased it. In fact, when we came to power, we reduced it. We even went on to give Ghanaians free water and free electricity. And then, unfortunately, because they are capitalists attempting to be socialists, they misapply the policy and then rather cause more problems for the utilities, such that when the utilities now have to come to the table for renegotiations on the tariffs, they'll come and quote us 400% and 200%. If you had been allowing the utilities to have their increments annually, as was done traditionally, and not because you want to do propaganda and tell us that the price of the cost of rent, the cost of electricity is higher than people's rent, so you come and reduce it. You rather make these state agencies inefficient. They become debt burdened, and they have no choice than to come and impose further hardships and difficulties on the average Ghanaian. Because at the end of the day, they are going to pass those costs to us through their tariffs. And that, unfortunately, is the situation at hand. Especially at a time when we are already reeling under inflation pressures, under depreciation pressures, under general high cost of living, incomes having to increase. The last increment they did for the public servants was about 7%. And then when you look at how the scale of cost generally within the economy, if you forget that 31% inflation, it is beyond 31%. Some products, the prices that were 5 cedis have gone up to 10, 11, 12 cedis. And that is 50%, 100% inflation when you go on specific items. So Sena, it is no laughing matter, and it is a very, very, very serious issue. Our president, this past week, instead of instilling some hope in us that he's on the neck of his appointees to come to some solutions on how to arrest the dollar, how to ensure that you are not putting more people down into the poverty bracket, comes to tell us that he's looking up to God. If Bible says that God created us in his own image, that means that the wisdom that God has, he has given that wisdom to us. The knowledge that he has given that knowledge to us. The intellect that he has given that intellect to us. He didn't give it to us for us to come back and tell him that, God, that's for this one, you have to solve this problem. Because I didn't say. Let God look down on his sons and daughters and say to them also, just as he said to Jesus Christ, this is my beloved, in whom I am well pleased. But instead of fixing inflation, is God coming to fix inflation for us? Does God print dollars, or is the Americans that print the dollars? And we have to go and trade to get the dollars. Is that not the principle that runs international trade? If we are not trading, we are borrowing. And in fact, that's also another problem that has brought us here. Because between the two options, the most disastrous is the borrowing. And we have shown that, in fact, as for that one, we are A+ graduates when it comes to that. But when it comes to the issue of trading, we are F9. Today, private sector, you mentioned the BDCs and the threat that will have challenges at the pumps very soon because they're not able to get enough dollars. The little dollars that Bank of Ghana releases into the economy by monthly finds its way into the hands of the black market. How does the money leave Bank of Ghana, get to the banks, the commercial banks, but if you're looking for the money, you find it at the black market where the rates are higher? It's going because some people are benefiting from the challenges that we are in. Some people are so wicked that they scheme every single day how to benefit from a 300 points increase in the policy rate to try and address an inflationary pressure problem. Unfortunately, this is not a demand side problem. It is a supply side issue. So the answer is how to get the dollars into the economy in the shortest possible term. As usual, our first solution is to go and borrow. So we are going to Afrimax to go and take 750 million down the same tunnel. The solution never changes. For my entire life as I've lived as a Ghanaian, and I'm 42 years old, from Wallace's time up to date, it appears that the solutions are always the same. When there's a deficit in your financing, we'll go and borrow, we'll come and put there, we'll take foreign loans to put in there, and then eventually there's pressure on the economy. I mean, the cycle never changes. So at what point are we going to change that paradigm? We want God to now come and fix that problem for us. We know the problem already. Why do we want to go and disturb God? People are at war, people are dying from pestilence and curses and all kinds of things. Let God go and concentrate on that one. And let us use brains. Let's make God proud. For him to look down at Ghana and say, these are my beloved, in whom I am well pleased. Not that he will look down at us and ask us, these people cry. You know, when I was in university, one of my lecturers said something. He said, when God created the world, he gave Africans everything. So one of the angels asked, you are being unfair to the rest of the world. And God said, wait till you see the people. Wait till you see the people I put there. Now, to be very honest, we really need to find some practical solutions. I'm sorry. Anytime I have to deal with this economic issue, I have to see Akufoado's face in my mind and I start laughing. Because everything that was said from 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 13, up to today, every word he has spoken has come back like karma to just consume him and eat he and Baumia up. It's as if they were prophesying their own future. Today you're given the opportunity, and every theory that you put out is the same theory that has subjected you to its own words, and you've been found wanting. As for Alan Kradie, don't even mention his name. You are from his camp, so I'm telling you, when you are responding to me, you come and raise him also. He was put in charge of PSIs. Another waste of taxpayers' money. None of those PSIs survived. If that is your presidential candidate in replacement of Baumia, another disaster, then NPP, you don't have the men. Or that we have the men, we have the men. They were nothing more than Goro boys. Sena, I am done.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabriella. So let me jump to Solo before I come and read my first batch of statements. Solo.
Good morning to your viewers and co-panelists. Interestingly, she decided to speak the truth at one point, and that is very refreshing. That she is 42 years old, and for her entire life, the solution seems to be the same, which means that even during their reign, they did nothing new, and they only continued with the cycle. And that seems to be the problem. I mean, I like it when people come to their real self rather than the usual political. She tried her best. I mean, at the end of the day, Ghana has to move. So that this issue of tariffs is not new. You understand? If you know the trajectory why the PURC came into force, you would know that this country has gone through a lot. In fact, between 94 and 96, the World Bank was the one dictating for us, giving us a formula, the long-run marginal cost, to determine how we would do our tariffs. And you remember somewhere in May of 1997, when the NDC government decided to increase tariff by 300%, then the country nearly experienced its worst chaos. And that's how come by October 97, Parliament enacted the PURC Act 538 to regulate our utility sector. Since then, we have had the automatic adjustment formula, and then every 2-year review. The problem is that on the altar of politics, instead of doing a major review every 2 years, when it is coinciding with the election period, politicians want to be smart. They are afraid because when you do, your opponents, knowing the truth, will go and use it against you. So that's what we've been doing to ourselves. So when it's getting to election period, we defer it. So when you take the data, between 2010 to 2020, we have reviewed our tariffs 29 times. And guess what? If you are reviewing something, it's either go up or down. But 16 of those occasions, we made the price to stay stagnant at where it is. 11 of the occasions that it was reviewed upwards, and then 2 of it was reviewed downwards. I mean, 2011 it was reviewed downwards, and then 2018 we also, as a government, reduced the tariff for Ghanaians to, and also industries to take advantage of it. See, there are certain components in producing electricity and water. We cannot do away with it. And these determinants, you have, for instance, electricity, you have the cables to buy, you have your transformers, and so on and so forth. Most of these components are imported. And once they are imported, now we are having to deal with what we call imported inflation. As a country, if you decide not to produce what you need, you have to rely on another country to produce. And while they are producing, they will dictate the price for you. Between 2019 to date, freight cost has increased by 1,000%, coupled with their own challenges there. So prices of these components are very high. These utility companies only operate to break even. They are not profit-oriented institutions. They are supposed to break even. But as it is, if you look at their data, they are not even breaking even. And it is because of our exchange rate, the price of crude that goes into their production, inflation, and so on and so forth. So, rightly so, they need some form of cushion to be able to break even. Remember, the electricity company went to the PURC asking for 148%, and water asking for 338. At the end of the day, they were given 21 and 27% respectively. That tells you that real hardship in the system. Mind you, nobody has said there is no hardship. There is. My sister is very happy because she feels it inures to their party's benefit. And that is why she would even question why the president of the land will rely on God at some form, by a point in time, for intervention. When a old flag bearer during the last election said, his whole being, he was relying on God. So if today she is going contrary to the flag bearer's wish, that he believes that it is God that turns things around, then it tells you that politics have got into a new height. So now, you see, we are faced with a decision or a choice to make. Either to allow the utility companies to run as it is, because internationally, Ghana here, we are doing 111%. So, are we going to continue on the path of we operating below the acceptable limit, so that there will not be more investment into the sector, so that we will not be able to have portable, good drinking water to be able to reduce poverty, or we will do what is right, we will tighten our belts, cushion them small to be able to meet us halfway. That is where we are. It is interesting, in the midst of all our hardships, our lights are still on. It tells you that we are determined to move this country forward, not to supervise the total collapse of this country. The way forward, I believe that that is what, as a government, we have started in part. We recognize the structure of this economy. It is not in the best of shape. It has been so since. And till such a time that we do something monumental, we will still experience these things, as my sister said. That any time we go into problems, I have listened to the governor of Bank of Ghana and some managers of the economy in my party, and the solution is not in Kyrok, and it will not help this country. Rather, we must focus on the policies and programs that we have started, i.e., bringing in the strategic anchor industries, i.e., encouraging agriculture, so that we can produce more of the things we need. These utility companies, one thing that they are also not doing right is that you have local companies that produce some of the components that they need. For instance, these cables, you have a lot of Ghanaian companies producing. What prevents them from buying more from these companies rather than always wishing to go outside there and buy? What is in there for them? These are the questions that we must begin to ask as Ghanaians, so that if the electricity company of Ghana and Ghana Water Company decides to procure a lot of the components locally, what that we don't have, those that we cannot produce here, they have no other option than to rely on outside companies. But those that are produced locally, they must do well to buy locally. Other than that, this issue of dollar that now people are dancing, they are very happy that it is going up, we will still be found wanting. Again, we must, as a country, revisit why we are unable to. For instance, you go to the mining companies, all the big mining companies, about 99% of those that work there are blacks, are Ghanaians. Why is it that we are unable to manage these companies ourselves, so that any time they make profit, they repatriate it, putting pressure on our currency? Same has to be said about our telecommunication industry and the banking sector. These critical sectors, if it's not in our hands, we will talk all the beautiful economics, but in reality, we will not be getting anywhere. She rightly said, if you go and increase prime rate, prime rate by 300 basis points, you put pressure on businessmen. Because now what it means is that interest rate is going to go up. If interest rate goes up, repayment become very difficult. Businesses will not be able to adapt, and therefore, even your tax revenues, you are not likely to achieve it. I believe that the Bank of Ghana should also look at the issue of their monetary policy. If you have been increasing prime rate and still inflation is high, then it tells you that it is not a demand push inflation, but rather something different. Rightly so, this is cost. You have your fuel prices going up today, not through your fault, but from international market. So what do you do about it? You have your freight going up. It is pushing prices of goods and services up. So if you go and increase your prime rate, you are telling us that as though we have a lot of monies in our pocket that you want to mop up excess liquidity in the market. which will affect us. So we have to look at those options. But the most important thing is that we must be focused on developing the base of the economy, encouraging more factories to be producing locally, which we have started, and that we must do whatever it takes to be able to reduce interest rate for these Ghanaian companies to be producing the basic items that we have. Our government have done something good, at least for the past 5 years. We have experienced trade surplus. We have not had the deficit like she was trying to portray. We have had trade surplus. It means if you do well, and we are even projected to export close to $25 billion worth of goods, that is doable. That is what we need all sides to help push the agenda. Other than that, if they will sit in parliament and every day approve loans, she is part of the problem, but she's running away from the problem. They approve the loans for all of us to go and pay. What do they take into consideration in approving all these laws? Because at the end of the day, if it was the case that the executive only prepares the facility and then go and take it without approval by any institution, then you can only hold them solely reliable. But in this case, they prepare the document, send it to Parliament to peruse. Parliament go through it, and then they say, yeah. When goes through and they use the money according to what they have told you, and you still come back to come and tell us that, hey, reckless borrowing, I will not agree. Then it means in the first instance you didn't know what you were doing in Parliament. But I don't want to believe that they do not know what they are doing. They know the truth of the matter, except that we have to push. So, Sena, it is a difficult moment for every Ghanaian, but I can assure you that the new Patriotic Party, knowing whom we are, our foundation, our orientation, and our resolve, we will definitely take this country from the problems that we have. We will reverse things. It's 2 years, it's too early in the day for people to rejoice or gloss over our predicaments. But we must all look at it from the angle that as Ghanaians, because it does not discriminate. Hardship does not discriminate. It does not say this one is an NPP, this one is an NDC. We all go to the same Makola, we all go to the same filling station. So it is in the interest of opposition parties to even pray and help government, a ruling party, so that things will be better, so that in an unlikely event that they get the opportunity to come and govern, things will be a bit smooth for them. But if you wish that we go into the abyss, it will be difficult to come up before you even start anything. So we would take you out. We would refine and turn around this economy like we did in 2017. We took over the economy that was growing at 3.4%. We started growing it. Unfortunately, there was a knack. People don't want us to go, but I want to focus on what we do so that tomorrow, the situation we find ourselves today, we do not, productive sectors of this country, focus on making sure that Ghanaians take charge of all aspects of this economy, and it will be fine. And I think Ghana will be a better place come the next 2 years.
Thank you, sir. Thank God you admit, if it was only your predicament, I would have helped Gabriella laugh, but it is our predicament. So, but a couple of things. What you talk about the 300 basis points that the Bank of Ghana has done, there are other measures that people have paid particular attention to the statement that the Bank of Ghana issued. And one of them is about, so you talk about mopping up money. One of them is the committee also took the following additional measures: raise the primary reserve requirement of banks from 12% to 15% to be implemented in a phased manner. 13% from 1st September 2022, 14% by 1st October 2022, and 15% by 1st November 2022. And then there's one that I think Mr. Pratt has been talking about for a while. The Bank of Ghana confirms it. It says to boost the supply of foreign exchange to the economy, the Bank of Ghana is working collaboratively with mining firms, international oil companies, and their banks to purchase all foreign exchange arising from the voluntary repatriation of export proceeds from mining and oil and gas companies. This will strengthen the central bank's foreign exchange auctions. So they are telling you that we are allowing these people to take too much out of our economy. A couple of messages. This one is from Papa Bishi, who says, MPP gurus like Ejepong, Ken Ejepong, Nyao Tamaklo, Kwame Mpianim, Rekubrobe, Dr. Makuba of Kwame Nkrumah University in Kumasi, among others, are all echoing the voices of majority of suffering Ghanaians under their own party in government, and therefore telling this government that has totally lost touch with the reality on the ground. On that note, how can such hopeless MPP government break the eight? Do they think Ghanaians are sick? I mean, how? You want to rig? Don't, or you will suffer the consequence. That's from Papa Bisio. There's also Idi Gideon, who joins us this morning, says, regards to all your knowledgeable panelists, of late I have come to observe very vividly that some journalists are a bigger threat to our democracy as we see today. Much as I say so, many people also believe the cross-section of the so-called intellectuals of Ghana are a great failure and disaster to the progress of Ghana, since most of them divert the true facts and realities facing the Ghanaian citizen for reasons best known to them in the midst of several shortfalls of the present-day government. Is quite extensive. This one is from, okay, Black Tiger says, my question today is for Mr. Pratt. Okay, it says, where is the real Kwesi Pratt that was part of Let Them? Okay, I'm not sure. Kumi Preko, the same things he stood against are happening today. Every Saturday, but no significant projection of what the name Kwesi Pratt stands for. Thank you. That's from him. Charles Cardinal Kwesi says, I suspect this government is printing money to absorb dollar in the system because they've locked up capital in the market. There's a Mogobo of Finso says the current hardship is as a result of the numerous corruption in this government. The stealing is more than the production they promised. The day for account will come soon when President Mahama is sworn come 7th December 2024. There's also P.A.C. Anto, who says, when African governments cry of food shortages because of somebody's war, why should we waste our time to queue to vote at all? Africa has the largest arable land, yet our governments cannot feed us. We wait until Ukraine pulls down its weapons. Forsake its national defense to ship mere grains to feed us. What about feeding our hens and cocks? Some of us don't have morality and shame, but to go on radio and television to defend why we can't plant cassava to make gari to feed ourselves. Oh, Ghana, Africa, and the black man. I think the wisdom of the ant needs to be out on a placard and hanged on the chests of African leaders to their shame. That's P.A.C. Anto saying that. Let me end with Tafai Namra here. Who says, yes, okay, yesterday I met 3 MPP members and they told me they're in opposition since 2017. But now their party is coming to join them in opposition. So no breaking the 8 to solo. Well, Mr. Kwesi.
Thank you very much, Sena, and good morning again to all your many viewers and listeners across the country and beyond. And good morning to my co-panelists. Happy to see all of you. It's a sad reality we are living. A nation that is truly blessed, but unfortunately, it's a nation that is on its knees. A nation that is on its knees. And it's largely because we have, unfortunately, what I consider to be the bane of this nation. And the bane of this nation has always been the Dankwa Busia family. Unfortunately, that's been the bane of this nation. And often when you say that, it does come across as if you are saying every single person who belongs to that family has been a problem. That's not the case at all. There clearly will be noble people who belong to that family. But the spirit that has constantly animated that party, that group, is a spirit that is absolutely injurious to any nation. It's a group that has been largely animated by a spirit that I consider to be a destructive spirit. A spirit that is selfish. a spirit that hasn't got a capacity to think for the group, a spirit that thinks about self first. And you've seen it every single step of the way. Throughout, that's really what the spirit of that group has been. This is a group, for example, that believe that our national independence can only happen when they were ready or when they were in charge. That's who they are. If they are not in charge, you don't have the right to have independence. This is a group that when matters came to a head, felt that, listen, now, let's break this country and make it into what you call split regions. Because they believed that somehow they were in control of regions where they felt there was enough resources to take care of themselves. The well-being of the whole has never been their priority. It is about if we can get it, then the rest should not have it. That's who they have been. Now, and far worse than this selfishness, far worse than this greed, has been the fact that this is a group whose spirit principally is a spirit of deception, double speak, hypocrisy. And that has constantly animated them. And of all the people who have emerged through this group, I mean, from before independence through all the way to now, I mean, the worst of them that has emerged is the one who currently is the leader of the country, Nana Akufo-Addo. And closely working with him is actually, so the other one, sometimes I wonder how well to describe him. But generally, that, you see, when you have leading you, people who do not understand the leadership fundamentally, it's not about you. It's about the well-being of the whole. People who do not appreciate the leadership is about trust. Because we are committing into your hands the destiny of millions of people. We are committing into your hand the destiny of children unborn. We are committing into your hands what do you call the resources of a nation. And our resources are massive resources. It's not just about what you call natural resources that people talk about. The human resource. These are massive resources. And we're talking also about a country whose responsibility is not just about the well-being of the citizens of our country, but a country that, whether we like it or not, by the very, shall I call it, orchestration of destiny, we were given a task to also be a beacon of hope to a continent, and not just to a continent, but actually to a whole race. Because if you notice what happened in the fight towards our independence, we were not just inspiring Africa, we actually were inspiring the black race. So you have people who were outside of the continent, who belong to this race, but who look so proudly upon what strides we were making. So this is a nation that is precious, a nation whose destiny is important. But unfortunately, when you have at the helm of this nation a group whose preoccupation is, I must do everything for power. The only thing that matters to them is power. And a group that also believes that this nation is their property. And that's really what their mentality has been. It is our property. So we must have it. The rest of you, it doesn't belong to you. It's our property. We do what we want. Now, these are the real things that at the beginning, at the what you call the root causes of the problem we have. Now, this whole conversation about break the eight, and I'm laying this foundation in order to move into the economic conversation. Now, what does that tell you? It tells you that as far as they are concerned, leadership is simply about anything you can do just to have power. You remember in 1998, when they went for their Congress, what did you hear? The late J.H. Manson, when he mounted the platform, he kept saying, we want power, we want power, we want power. Their preoccupation is not about what to do with power. It's not about the well-being of anybody. It's simply, we want power. That's what it is. The same thing they did prior to independence. They couldn't get access to power. What did they do? They now were at the what you call the forefront of what you call the destabilization of this country. They're the people who were the first to start what you call the process of causing coups in this country. Bomb explosion. Because once they don't have power, nobody must have it. That's who they are. Animated by nothing but greed, selfishness. That's all it is. It has a spirit that animates them. And the feeling that somehow this country is their property. If they have it, nobody must have it. The bane of this country is the Busia Dankwa Foundation. Family. The NPP family is the bane of Ghana. And people must understand it. The very DNA of that group is not a DNA that immune to the benefit of anybody. So you see them. All the talk about, we have done the greatest good for Ghana. Listen carefully. It is true that every group will make some contribution. There's no dispute about that. In fact, no matter how incompetent you are, if you have given access to power, you would also do something. All the political parties that trying to lead this country, whether they are the most minute political parties or the smallest of political parties, if they had access to power today, they also will do something. Why not? After all, once you take over a country, you will get access to tax resources. Those tax revenues are available. No matter how dumb you are, you will still be able to build some road. You will still be able to build something. Everybody will do something. So, I'm not one to come and say that, listen, over the period that they've been in power, they've done nothing. No. Those are extreme conversations, and I don't think that's the conversation we need to be having. But I'm talking about things that build nations. And the things that build nations is essentially about, as I said again, trustworthiness. How did they come to power this recent time? They came to power purely on the foundations of falsehood. Complete deception of people. They created false impression about being messiahs. They hold the magic wand. As soon as they take over, they will be able to resolve the problems. The dollar will no more accelerate. They actually will bring stability to it. The currency will have stability. They are not going to increase taxation, because taxation is what the lazy man's approach to governance. They're going to move the economy from taxation into production. How many things did they not boast about? And for you to move to that level, and today, you see what? You are depending on God. You are depending on God? Really? Now, so, God should not leave heaven and come to the Flagstaff house and come and take over the administration of Ghana. Because somehow, you have decided that you simply cannot do anything anymore. You've lost total control. Is it God that is coming from heaven to come and run the economy of Singapore? Is God running the economy of South Korea? Has God come down to come and run the economy of Brazil and all the other economies all over? Is God in charge of running the day-to-day administration of various countries where we are not seeing the crisis we are seeing today? God has given us the capacity to be in charge of our destiny. And what we do to honor God is to make use of those faculties. God has given you a brain. And the reason he gave you the brain is so that you can make full use of it. You do not go to bury your brain in the sand and then come and start screaming, God, solve my problem. Because God will tell you, why did I give you a brain? Use the brain given to you and find the solutions. I even want to say that, listen, the real problem we are having, even though, of course, in the political banter, you hear about lack of competence, lack of ideas, they don't really know anything. I say again, the problem is not lack of ideas. The problem is not lack of ideas. Listen, ideas are available. If you can even find ideas locally, it's being implemented. Different nations have implemented some of those ideas. So you can always find ways of, borrowing ideas from different places. This is not like a problem that's the first time being faced by one country. Different countries have faced this problem before. So we can actually leverage on what different people have done. The problem we have is that we are dealing with a group of people who are so obsessed with power. Every step of the way, it is simply how to lie, hoping that the lies will keep them in power. That is the problem. Fundamental problem we are facing. That is it. So first they lie coming to power, and then when they come to power, they continue lying and deceiving the people and doing things thinking that they are fooling the people. Because as far as they are concerned, their whole aim is that let us do anything to hold on to power. To hold on to power for what purpose? So that Kenyan company, the data bank, will continue profiting every minute that you borrow more money. And those monies will go supporting Kenyan, his family, including the president, and keeping them to remain wealthy while the rest of the country continues being impoverished. That is their obsession. The obsession is that his sidekick Baumia will be able to take over from them so that they can continue this hegemony. That's what it is. They don't care about the well-being of Ghana. As far as they are concerned, this country is their property and they must hold on to this kingdom. That's what they look at it. That's the game that's been going on. So it shifts from Busia, then it comes to Dankwa, then it goes back to Busia, then it comes to Dankwa. That is the game that is going on. Because as far as they are concerned, this is their property. This country belongs to them. And they just have to continue lying. That's why they even have no ounce of humility. No ounce of what you call capacity to admit that they are wrong. Capacity to admit that they've totally gotten it wrong. They simply can't. Every step of the way is one lie after the other. When you catch them here, they say, no, it is Muhammad that caused the problem. The next one, it is COVID that caused it. The next one is Russia, Ukraine that caused it. Every step of the way, shifting blame, trying to blame somebody for it. But they simply don't have the capacity to be humble, to have the honor, the decency to accept that you have got it wrong. So the president is told, no, it's pretty obvious the finance minister has totally lost it. Why don't you move your finance minister? They say his guys have been great. His people have been great. It means he doesn't even appreciate the enormity, the seriousness of what is going on. Yeah, because after all, he believes that, listen, this is our property. What do? We just have to, dance around a little, throw a little, thing here and there, spin the issue, get people like Solomon to come and defend the indefensible, trying to blame ABC, and try and create the impression that it's been a long problem that everybody has had. Anything except to admit that we have lied. We have deceived the people. We have come to office and our whole priority has been simply how to accumulate as much as possible and to feel that everything has been done to break the ace so that we can remain in power. That's been the problem. Now, what is really happening in the economy? What's happening in the economy is simple, that the foreign investors whose investment have been the reason why this city has been stable, have reached a moment where they say, you know what, we have lost faith in your economy. It's as simple as that. Every step of the way from 2017, all the so-called great economic management we were boasting about, it came about simply because by the beginning of 2016, the whole economic ecosystem across the world, talking about the investors, talking about the market, talking about the credit rating agencies, talking about the World Bank, the IMF, and all these groups, knew that Ghana under GM had actually laid the foundation for at least a minimum of 8% growth for 2017. And that was coming on account of the investment that had been put in place by 2016. And of course, they could also see that massive effort had been made to resolve this hydra-headed energy crisis that had afflicted the country as a result of what you call lack of investment that had been our problem for several government cycles. That also had been resolved. So clearly they could see that the foundation had been laid for an economy that was actually going to rebound and be strong. So of course, when you take over such an economy, with investors knowing the growth that is coming in 2017, naturally those investors are ready to patronize your bonds. So you are not going to come into a situation where your foreign reserves are going to be strong, because why? Investors are putting money into your economy. It's as simple as that. Now when they come, because they are absolutely not capable of telling the truth, they have no humility. They come and make a pretense that, you know what, because we have taken over, you know, cedi has become strong, we've arrested the dollar. And they don't have even the honor, the decency, the humility to accept that it is simply because of the new, confidence that has come as a result of the 2 oil fields that have been handed over to us. No, they can't. Because accepting that will mean that we can no more lie to the people that we are the miracle workers, the messiahs that we said. No, they can't. Now, all that has run full circle. They whittle away the goodwill. They went on what you call, a borrowing spree. Borrowed like there's no tomorrow. You know, this is very similar to what happens sometimes to some of our brothers and sisters when they travel out of this country. Where, for example, they travel maybe to UK, to US, and to other parts of the world, more economically developed nations, and suddenly realize that, you know what, you actually can have access to loans without struggle. Because when they are sure about where you are working, they know that you have regular income, the banks are ready to give you money. Now, so suddenly when some of our brothers who have never seen a thing like that before, realize suddenly that, you know what, I can have access to money, I can borrow anytime I like. What they do is to simply go on what you call a reckless borrowing. And they borrow as if there is no tomorrow. And then later realize that they have absolutely borrowed all the way up to their neck. And then when the boomerang starts to happen, they don't understand. But it simply came as a result of total lack of discipline. And that has been our friends, their issue. You take over a country where the total borrowing, as at the time you came into office, stood at 120 billion cedis. And I'm talking about, if you look at it, from independence all the way to the end of 2016, 120 billion cedis. Now we're talking about a group that actually said that, listen, you don't need to borrow. Because, we've worked at the Bank of Ghana, we know where the money is. So you don't really need to borrow. Then within no time, you have taken that borrowing from that 120 to today we are talking about what, in the region of about what, 400 billion? That is absolutely, that's insanity. And the reason why you're doing this borrowing is because you feel that what? A strong economy was left for you. And the investors were showing interest. So I can borrow. Like I said, that the people who travel abroad, they see the money is available. So they start borrowing. Now when you're even borrowing, at least you should be able to be conscious that a lot of those borrowings must be put into economically great economic returns. Like for example, we came into our affairs. We went to China and spoke with what we call China Development Bank and had an initial about $3 billion of loan. Over time, we could not assess all of it, but at least the part we assessed, which initially was about $1 billion, has been put today into what you call an economic game changer. That's what you call the gas infrastructure, the Sobo gas plant, which is a complete game changer. Because what that does for us is that every single year, it saves us not less than $300 million. Money otherwise that would have been using, to import crude oil. That saves that. 300 million a year, 4 years is 1.2 billion. That already has paid for that infrastructure. That is what you do when you love a nation. What our friends have done is simply come and gone on what you call reckless borrowing, and the majority of the borrowing for consumption. Because their view is that, you know what, just continue doing things that can keep you in power. So then they come and tell you, oh, you know, we have done this for the people, we have done that for the people, because they believe that once you continue mentioning some of those things that you have done, one village, one dam, 1 million in every constituency. I mean, they actually believe that the people they're so naive that you just have to continue mentioning all these so-called flagship, and then you can remain in power. That tells you what their mentality is. Their mentality is not development. Their mentality is do anything that can keep you in power. And any group that thinks only about power is a group that does not love nation enough. If you love your nation enough, you do what is right and allow the people to see what you have done, and on the back of it, you know, this is a group that cares. But this is a group that believes that, you know what, anything. So it's like what you say, what is worth doing is worth doing well. They don't believe in that. They believe that what is worth doing anyhow. Then you can use all the kind of liars and spin doctors all over the various stations. I mean, get some of the journalists possibly and compromise some of them to help you, and get people in different places who, even though they are seeing what is right, will look the other way, and allow the whole nation to be inundated by lies, deception, and then you can ride on the back of that and still hold on to power. That's what they've done. So the collapse of the city has largely happened because they basically have been so reckless. They have shown such indiscipline. They've borrowed way beyond their capacity. Now those investors are like today, no, we are not interested in your economy anymore. What's happening? The economy is being downgraded virtually on a day-to-day basis. It's reached what you call junk status. It's never happened in our history. Junk status. And this has nothing to do with Russia, Ukraine. It has nothing to do with COVID. Because as you realize, which other country in sub-Saharan Africa has had its economy downgraded to junk status? Nobody. But because they don't have the capacity to accept the truth, they continue shouting Russia, Ukraine, and COVID, because they believe that, you know what, the people of Ghana are not smart. After all, since they are the owners of the country, they kind of feel also that they have control over, I mean, who the country is. The country is made up of some imbeciles, some idiots. You just have to continue lying to them and fooling them. COVID, Russia, Ukraine, because they feel the people are not smart, they can't understand. Now, so the people of Ghana must understand what I call the real DNA that is informing what is going on. This is a group, in fact, if we love this nation, this group should never come even close to power. And I'm not saying it because I belong to anything. I'm telling you, this group should not come close to power. As I told you, their DNA, even before independence, is not a group that cares about nation. It's a group that fundamentally thinks only about itself. It's like living in a family, and one in the family thinks only about himself. If there is food, he feels the food belongs to me. Everybody else can go hungry. As long as I have that food, I'm fine. If I don't have it, nobody has it. That's who they've been. And to add to that is the deception, the lies, the lack of humility. And that's why this country is where we are. So all these utility crises and so on, they're basically what you call the effects of a deeper crisis, which is the crisis of deception, the crisis of selfishness, the crisis of greed, and the worst part is that you know, the thing about them, is so ironical. They call themselves the United Party at the time when they were actually fragmenting Ghana. Then they call themselves the Progress Party at the time when they were holding back the very progress of Ghana. Then they came back into another form. Let's forget about PFP. Then they now call themselves New Patriotic Party, a group that absolutely show lack of patriotism. They do not care about nation. They care about themselves, and they call themselves Patriotic Party. You understand what I'm saying? So you can see it's a very ironical group. A group that says light when it's filled with darkness. A group that says forward when it's actually going backward. A group that says unity of Ghana when it's actually fragmenting Ghana. That is the problem. It's the group that has such a DNA that really, if Ghanaians are truly taking time to look into issues properly, this group should never come close to holding power in Ghana. They should never. So this breaking aid business, Ghana, allow these people break it, it means that we simply don't love ourselves. The dollar has reached what? Over 10 cedis. $1 to 10 cedis. And for the group that told you about the fact that, listen, I mean, we were mismanaging the economy so much. I remember the president said what? It's what? Criminal to have the dollar changing for 3.72. 3.72, that was crime. And we are talking today about 10.2 minimum. And then the leadership of that same man. And his assistant, his deputy, his vice, who actually say you're the economic messiah, who had all the ideas. And this is how low we have sunk. And so now the more we think about it, the more you feel sad for Ghana. The soul of this nation is in trouble because we have a group that simply does not care enough. I've known by any means saying that Kwame Nkrumah, who was opposed to them, or our group, the NDC, that is, they are basically like the other party today. We are angels or we are perfect. No, we are not. We have normal humans who also have their imperfections. So that's that. And to be honest with you, the imperfection of individuals or MPP is not my issue. My issue has to do with the central animating spirit of the party, the DNA of the party. That DNA is a danger to the very soul of Ghana. Okay. And that is a real issue that Ghanaians must have. All these things that are happening are simply what you call the fruits of a deeper problem. And that deeper problem has to do with what I consider to be a very dangerous political family. A family that simply thinks only about itself. A selfish bunch. A group of people that cannot tell the truth, who care only about power and they'll do anything for power. And they don't have even the capacity to show responsibility and to show accountability.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I go to Mr. Pratt, just a few messages from Facebook. Now, if you joined us on Facebook a bit earlier and you had problems with the feed, it was freezing, so you've moved on to other channels and you can listen to us, you can come back to Facebook. We've ended the first feed. We have a new one up that's working smoothly. So you come back and join us on Facebook again. It's on Pan-African Television. Pan-African Television. That's the name of the Facebook page. And I'm reading a few messages that you've just been sending to us. This is Osman Lache, who says a good morning. Sena, Libya here with no government. Petrol, 4 gallon is 3 dinars. And gas 24 kilo is 3 dinars, equivalent to 8 cedis. Yauza is also joining us from Swami. So the clash between Katanga and okay, yes, another issue in mind. There's Johnson Smith, who says, in fact, the Nanado and his government are the most useless government ever. Dennis Kwesi says, when you force your way to power and think that you can use the construction of a cathedral to appease God, the exchange rate with its accompanying hardship will not only expose you, but it will come with a divine writing on the wall within the context of Isaiah 33:22. And it will only take a sober and reflective heart to decipher. So sad, but Ghana shall triumph. Okay, it says good to see my former MP, Honorable Fii Quartey, once again on your show. There's Haruna Jibril, who is joining us. Sena, my humble regards to Honorable Alan Kojo Chairman team. Please, he is not suffering from identity and credibility crisis, and he is the only hope as he stands now to lead our great NPP. So we are pleading with the delegates to endorse him, if indeed they want the party to be in the promised land. Musa Abatua says President Akufo-Addo and Bawumia have no reason to increase utility tariff because they told us in opposition that to increase at the time Ghanaians are struggling to raise 3 square meals a day was a mark of insensitivity. So why are they making a U-turn today to impose unprecedented hardship on ordinary taxpayers? Changing NPP in 2024 is a communal labor, and every well-meaning Ghanaian must participate. There's Tonya Lekofia Aite who says, I wonder why people are still defending this kind of leaders. Okay, so there's also Efo Kujo Edem says, Sena, please tell Mr. Fii Quartey that we need him more to tell these insensitive people the truth. They have done nothing for this country. There's also Desmond. Let me end with his. I really don't know why the NPP wants to be in power. They've shown crass incompetence for their good, and if they mean well for Ghanaians, I think they should just leave the reins of power. How much more damage are we to behold? They should just leave, please. Mr. Pratt.
Well, I think that the first thing to note is that the rate of increase of the utility tariffs is in doubt. At least it is being contested. There are some who have done the calculation and come to the conclusion that it is way above what the PURC has announced. I'm not going to do the calculation here because everybody can do the calculation in their own time and so on. So the rate of increase is in dispute as we speak. But in spite of that, everybody knows that at least at the very minimum, it has been increased by 27%. Now, one of the most important questions now is why are we here? How did we get here? And there are many factors. All of those factors relate to the choices that we make. Right now, we have what the experts call a generation mix. Part of the power we have is hydro generation. We are also using thermal generation. And even for thermal, we have two types. Either generating with gas or generating with crude oil. You understand? And then to some extent, we are also generating power by solar. And then there's a little windmill generation and so on. Now, it is a mixture of all of this that finally gives us the cost per unit. You understand? Now, if you look at hydro generation, the most expensive when it comes to hydro is 3 cents per unit. 3 cents per unit. When you come to thermal generation, you can go as far as 15 to 16 cents per unit. You understand? So it is clear that if you opt to use a lot more thermal for your generation, the cost will go up. That under the current arrangement, the most sensible thing to do when it comes to the cost of utility is either to depend largely on hydro or a mix of hydro and solar, and to some extent wind and so on. That reduces the cost considerably. Now, it is clear that over the years, we have opted to depend largely on thermal generation of power. And that's a huge mistake. Okay? Because the more we depend on thermal, the more expensive it becomes for our people. And these are policy options. Now, I read the 5-year development plan that the Nkrumah government put in place and the 7-year development plan that Nkrumah put in place. And I worked at the Ministry of Energy over a certain period of time. Now, in that plan, there was a lot of emphasis on mini hydro projects, which were to be connected to the major hydro projects and so on. It seems to me that the mini hydro projects have been abandoned, and it doesn't make sense to abandon the mini hydro projects. You have the new Patriotic Party, which is talking about one village, one dam, and so on. I mean, in the days of Nkrumah, how many years ago? Almost 60 years ago, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, they were linking the generation of power to the effort to increase agricultural production and productivity. You understand? So the mini hydro projects were to generate power and also to provide water for irrigation and for farming and so on. It did make a lot of sense. Okay? Now, if you look at our investment in solar, it is minimal and doesn't make any sense at all. Our investment in solar is minimal, it doesn't make any sense at all. If you come to think of the fact that Europe and elsewhere in the world is increasingly shifting to solar when their access to solar power is far more limited than our access to solar power. It doesn't make sense at all. So the options we have chosen is part of the problem. The policy options chosen by governments becomes a problem, can lead to increases in tariffs and so on. And I think we should note that. So here, when we are talking about choices, we are not just talking about choices of the means of generating power, but we're also talking about choices of government. What government are you putting power, into its hands? Because if you vote a government which is not conscious of the options available to us and what will lead to cheap energy and so on, then you should be expecting these kinds of increases. Okay? So the option is not just about what you choose, what mode of generation you choose, it's also about what government you choose and what the government's own perspectives are and so on. Choices. That's one. Now, two. Why? We are where we are also because we are heavily dependent on imports when it comes to the generation of power. Why? We don't produce the turbines, even when it comes to the generation of hydropower. We don't produce the turbines. We don't produce many of the things that we need to be able to take power from the generation source to our homes. They are imported. If you come to thermal generation, we are still importing crude for thermal generation and so on. Now, if you have a government which does not take measures to limit the importation of essential items for the production of power and for everything else, you are likely to suffer major tariff increases. Again, it comes to the question of choice, you understand? Now, if you have a government which is not able also to stabilize the national currency, the cedi in this case, then you have a huge problem. Now, by the calculations that we have done, since 1982, the cedi has been devalued by more than 28,000%. Can you wrap your head around it? A devaluation of more than 28,000%. Now, if you're in the kind of situation in which we are, and your currency gets devalued by more than 28,000%, it will affect utility tariffs. Right now, over the last couple of days, the cedi has gone crazy. Now, the value of the cedi changes by the hour. Yesterday morning, we were looking at an exchange rate of 10 cedis to $1. Today, as we are sitting here, I just checked. In some places, the cedi is exchanging at 10.5 to $1. You understand? So the cedi is just gone completely mad, and it has repercussions on the utility tariffs. It does have serious repercussions on the utility tariffs. If you don't stabilize the cedi, your utility tariffs are going to go up. But you see, beyond that, it's also the issue of efficiency, of competence, and so on. That's a major issue. Now, go back. I'm not going to mention names, but I'm sure that all of us can do that exercise in our heads privately. Look at all the governments we have had up to this one. Look at the caliber of people they decide to appoint to sit on the boards of VRE, of ECG, of GRICO, and so on. That clearly sends a message. If you look at appointments to boards, you see some names on boards, and you begin to ask yourself, what is that 1, 2 doing on that board? You understand what I'm saying? So, if you have a government which is appointing the board of directors of the electricity company of Ghana, and it knows the value of electricity to the economy and so on, and it appoints, excuse my language, I would have been happy if I could find a softer language, a more pleasant language, it appoints idiots. You understand? Or some idiots to sit on that board, your electricity tariffs will go up. And for me, I'm so very deeply worried about the boards of these major corporations which have huge impacts on national life. And you have governments which come to power and they actually believe that appointment to these boards should be treated as rewards for loyalty. Sometimes rewards for excessive stupidity. And so on. It's worrying. And I think all of us, as citizens of this country, need to open our eyes. And we need to put pressure on all of our governments. We need to insist on competence as a criteria for appointments. Because if we don't, what we're experiencing today will continue and it will have terrible consequences for all of us. You know, some time ago, I did a story as a journalist and carried that story, and all hell broke loose for a long time. You know, the electricity company of Ghana, at that time I think it was the Electricity Corporation or something. One of the key things they use in getting electricity into our homes and so on are transformers. And the transformers sometimes get blown. Okay? There was a company in Ghana which was rewiring transformers which are blown. The ECG then decided that it didn't like the Ghanaian company. So the defective transformers were actually sent to Calabar in Nigeria for refurbishing. And we paid in foreign exchange. Now what is interesting? The transformers were sent to a church for rewinding. The Olumba church for rewinding. We paid for the transformers upfront. We paid for the transformers upfront. The transformers never came back to Ghana. Even in their deformed state, they didn't come back to Ghana. We lost the money and everything. Why would your utility tariffs not go up? Why would your utility tariffs not go up? Not too long ago, excuse me, my voice is giving me problems this morning,
No
but
problem.
we'll carry on.
No problem.
Not too long ago, there was also an audit report, I'm sure you're all familiar with it, of one of the utility companies actually buying stationery, which was going to last for, I think, about 100 years or so. You remember? Why would your utility tariffs not go up? If you look at the advancement of technology, computers and so on, very soon, those stationery they bought will be useless. And yet somebody is so clever, so smart, running an utility company, and actually believes that we needed to buy stationery for 100 years. Why would your utility tariffs not go up? You understand? Now, Electricity Company of Ghana. I remember as a reporter in the early 80s, was it? So decided that they were having difficulties in collecting the bills and so on. So they came up with a very brilliant idea of bringing into this country the Electricity Company of France to help them collect the bills. So they brought people from Europe, from France. You know how much we paid them then? 128 million cedis to come and help us to collect bills. Now we, who were born in Ghana, who lived in the alleys of Kotobabi Dam, we can't collect bills from Mamobi, Shukura and others. People from France were coming to teach us how to collect bills. And we paid 128 million for that purpose. Most useless enterprise. They came, by the time they were leaving, bill collection was worse than they came to meet it. This is one of the reasons why tariffs go up. Because our leaders find it too difficult to think. Most of our leaders stopped thinking a long time ago. Thinking is not their business. They dread thinking. 28 million down the drain. It was gone forever. For nothing. There have been recent revelations that I don't want to, dwell on. But there's another aspect that we should worry about. All of these utility companies are saying that, look, we are heavily indebted. And that we need resources to be able to retire our indebtedness. And Massa, I look back, and I remember that 2001 it was, when President Kufuor assumed office as president. The toll debt was so huge, you remember? And then decided that, look, the only way of dealing with this toll debt is to impose a toll debt recovery levy. You remember? We have been collecting this from 2001. How many years ago? 2001.
That's 21. 21 years.
For 21 years, we've been collecting toll debt recovery. The debt, what is happening to it? Why is that levy going? Where is that levy going? You mean, and I want somebody to do that calculation, that how much has been collected? What was the debt that the toll debt recovery levy was supposed to retire? Why are we still doing that? Put that aside. Recently, President John Dramani Mahama came up with a policy, because every time we are told that the energy sector debt is a huge problem and it is the reason why tariffs go up and prices go up and so on. So he came up with a policy. I mean, people would know better than me, on this matter. How do they call it? ESLA. ESLA. How much have we collected? Why is the energy sector debt ballooning all the time? Somebody should provide answers. The energy sector debt, what happened? The energy sector levy, what happened to it? And we hear all kinds of stories. That instead of using the money to retire the debt which will make it possible for us to enjoy reasonable rates and so on, some of it has been used as collateral to collect debts, to create more debt. That's how sensible our leaders are. They are so sensible, they are messing our lives up big time. Our leaders are so intelligent that you can't even understand them. That is our problem. Look at where we are. This problem of increases in tariffs has so many dimensions. And I'm going to deal with another dimension which does not strike people. Congo. I'm sure you've heard about Congo. One of the key things about Congo.
The bigger Congo.
Yeah, the bigger Congo. Okay. All the studies have established that Congo alone, one country in Africa out of 52, 54 countries, depending on which you are counting as countries and so on, one country has the potential to provide all of Africa with sufficient electric energy from hydro generation. Congo alone. You understand? We have sat down as African people to allow all manner of rascals, hooligans, and bandits to attack the Congo, to destroy the Congo, to destroy the potential of Congo to provide us with our needs. If Congo is able to fully develop its hydroelectric potential, it means that we all in Africa will be paying something like 2 to 3 cents per unit for the generation of electric power. And yet, look at what is happening in Congo. It happened with that intervention which led to the death of Patrice Lumumba, his torture, and his final execution. And since then, the Congo has known no peace. The effort to unite Africa so that we can use the resources of the African people to develop ourselves is going nowhere. Our leaders are now sitting here, and you know what they are doing? They are calling for reparation. You've heard them. Reparation for slave trade, as if the slave trade has ended. It hasn't ended. Its form has changed. But slavery is still on. The African people are still the drawers of water and hewers of wood. That phenomena has not changed. It has even gotten worse. Sena, today, as we sit here, just imagine tomorrow morning, one of the big ships landing at Tema port, and an announcement is made on radio that all of you Ghanaians who want to go and work on plantations in the United States for no pay, join the ship. There'll be a stampede at the harbor. We'll be running into slavery. There will be a stampede. You will see people challenging themselves with who is better qualified. That is the reality we are in today. At least in the era of the transatlantic slave trade, our ancestors fought. They resisted their capture. Even once they were on the boat to the United States and Asia and other places, not Asia, other places, Europe and so on, there were slave revolts. They resisted. Today, there will be no revolt. We'll be running to the slave ships ourselves. They don't have to come with guns. And in the face of this reality, they're calling for reparation as if it's ended. It hasn't ended. Why? Ask yourself how come. And this is from Nkrumah's book, Africa Must Unite. Nkrumah makes the point that Africa has about 52% of the world's total resources. We are so very poor. We have 52% of the world's total resources, and we are so very poor. How come? Because we no longer own those resources, we don't control those resources, and we don't exploit those resources for our own benefit. You understand? So in this situation of hardship, in this situation of pain and so on, we must always remember that continental unity is a necessity if we are to overcome all of these problems, which sometimes find expression in high utility tariffs. Continental unity is the key. Because if we unite, and if we own all the resources that we have, and Mr. Fifi mentioned, some of those resources, the human brain power and brawn power, the rivers, the gold, the diamonds, name them, the gas, the oil, the bauxite, the uranium, and so on. Look at the uranium deposits in Africa. And uranium is used for the production of energy. In fact, uranium is one of the reasons why the Western intelligence agencies conspired and overthrew Patrice Lumumba. Because they couldn't dream of a socialist leader controlling uranium. And they killed him, and so on. And we are still sitting here in our small, what do you call it? Small,
nation states.
Yeah, small states, non-viable states, and so on. And so now let me end with this, because this freaks me out. At independence, the former colonial powers thought that they shouldn't allow us to go completely free, They should make some arrangements so that we can still remain in the trap somehow. You understand? So they conceived this idea of a British Commonwealth with the Queen of England permanently as the head forever and so on. Can you imagine? somehow we decided to join the British Commonwealth. Okay? The French came up with what they then called Francophonie, which is the equivalent of the British Commonwealth for their former colonies and so on. Since independence, there have been those who have been agitating that all these are colonial contraptions and that we should walk out of these contraptions and assert the independence of Africa and work for a United States of Africa and so on. Then, hey presto, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo becomes president of the Republic of Ghana. And he says, the British Commonwealth is not enough for him. So in addition to joining the British Commonwealth, we are joining Francophonie. And there was applause. It is not that we joined Francophonie which is the problem. I am more worried by the fact that there was applause. And do you know what the applause was based on? Oh, he's a French-speaking gentleman. So it justifies our joining Francophonie. A couple of weeks ago, I'm hearing that some people in Francophonie are also deciding that, oh, no, they will not allow Akufo-Addo to steal the show. Some other heads of state. So from Francophonie, they're also joining the British Commonwealth. What idiotic leaders do we have in Africa? What is this? What happens to the value of our independence? Anyway, can you be surprised? Are you surprised? We have devalued the status of July 1st. Now, July 1st has been reduced to a commemorative day, July 1st. The day on which we consolidated our national independence has been devalued. And we're going to raise some day B. What is that day? Something, August, what? Something day B.
I think that one has been replaced by, is it the January 27th or what? The one that has to do with Constitution Day. Isn't 7th January? Yeah.
It hasn't been replaced. It's just messed up. You know, and the people who claim to be the real founders of Ghana independence, they are opposed to July 1st. The people who claim to be the real founders of Ghana's independence, and when I talk like this, master commotion. Last time I spoke like this, for 2 weeks, article upon article, challenging what I'm saying. I'm not even going to mind them, because history, the language of history is clear. 4 days ago, I saw the poster, original poster, which J.B. Dankwa used for his campaign. That poster said no to the Republican status. I'm sure some of you may have seen that poster, the original poster that he used. He was opposed to Ghana attaining a Republican status. And this is your founder? You see, all of this add up. All of this are related. The option of development you choose, the option of development you choose, leads to making a determination as to whether to depend on hydro, to depend on thermal generation, or to depend on other sources. The option of development you choose will lead to whether we should have a United States of Africa in which the Congo becomes the main provider of electricity through thermal generation. The option of development you choose will lead to whether or not the price of KK is going to be increased or not. And that's why I bring in all of these things. We still have options before us. The options have not been closed yet. At the very least, there will be another election in 2024. And we have to exercise our options wisely. But even before 2024, there will be many other options open to us. Right now, what is gaining broad attention in this country is the contest for the Flagbeership of the new Patriotic Party. It's on everybody's mind. If you want tariffs to be reduced, and you are an NPP person, I know that there are many people in the NPP who also want tariffs to be reduced. Vote wisely. Select wisely. You're some of the people, you know their records. They have brought us here. If you want them to continue, it is up to you.
Because see, all of them are a complete disaster. It's not like even there's a better option.
Well, that is what you think. I am strategic enough. Fifi, listen to me very carefully. I'm strategic enough to see that what happens everywhere eventually will have an impact on where we are going. What happens everywhere? You understand? There may be two incompetent people. Obviously, one may be more incompetent than the other. The mark there is incompetence, and so on. I am not saying that the new Patriotic Party should be voted for to become government in 2024. But I'm saying that for those who think, their destinies are tied in the new Patriotic Party, they also have choices to make, and that's a fact.
Thank you. Thank you. That should conclude our discussion on the very first topic. I've always wondered, when they say Commonwealth, which wealth is common? I thought the wealth was ours. What is the Commonwealth? Common to who? Anyway, to conclude, this is the precedent until 2024 when you make the decision. It says, above all, I continue to have an abiding faith in God to help turn the fortunes of our nation around, accompanied by appropriate policy, determination and hard work on our part. And I urge all of you gathered here to have the same belief that the fortunes of Ghana under the presidency of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo will be restored. The battle is the Lord's. We'll take a break.
If our president knew this, why did he contest Tribalism? If the solution was that simple, why did he contest Tribalism? Knowing that his professional area, his area of speciality is the law and not theology.
But Tribalism says he no longer believes in God. So where are you?
No longer.
He no longer.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we have more. This is a Matter of World Talk Shows. Alhaji and Alhaji.
The land of freedom, he's the Redeemer, and he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer, and he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer, and he has labored, he has suffered.
Welcome to Camp Trading and Farms Limited. We are the sole importers and distributors of FM World Rulong Plus Plus combined harvesters. We are the sole importers and distributors of FM World combined machines. If you buy from us, spare parts are readily available. Our machines can pick and harvest logged rice as well as standing rice and is 102 horsepower. FM World tractors also have 110 horsepower, which is fully hydraulic and can break hard grounds. Our rotavators is also 102 horsepower. It works perfectly in muddy areas and in lands where tractors cannot operate. World combined harvesters come with automatic gear drive, diesel power engine, 1.77 cubic grain storage tanks, 2.2 meter curtain width, 360-degree unloading pipe and sunshade, as well as 2 diesel filters. Our branches include Tamale Airport area, Accra Ritz Junction. Kindly call us on 0278 223 811 or 0550 108 899. as well as 020-1600-727. Don't buy fake, buy original. Buy from us now. Camp Trading and Farms Limited, your best importers and suppliers of FM World Roulong Plus Plus combined harvesters.
To lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer and
thank you very much for staying with us live on Pan-African Television. Like I said, we're also live on our social media platforms. Facebook, we're on Pan-African Television. On YouTube, we're on Pan-African TV. We are live on Radio Gold. We are live on several other affiliates across the country, including Ahunto 92.3 FM here in the Greater Accra region. Before we move on to the other discussions, just a few messages to conclude the last one. This is Masola Kwabli, who says they cunningly gave you 15% cola and you were all over jubilating. Now you have been hit with 27.15% and 21.55% water and electricity tariffs, and you are crying. You should know the kind of people you are dealing with by now. Now Akufo-Addo is telling us that he's looking up to God to intervene in the messy economy his people have given us. Was he not the same person who told us Baumia is the repository of wisdom? So what has changed? They mess up everything. Yet they have the gas, the temerity, and effrontery to say they will break the eights. Let's see how they will do that. Well, Anyo Inakwetia is also joining us. Things are hard though, but I'm hoping that there will be a relief. It is just a matter of perseverance. At its appointed time, there will be joy at last in the days to come. That's Walanyo Inakwetia. This Papa Bisu again. Never in the history of Ghana's governance have I ever seen or heard in my life that SIs, the state insurance company, a state-owned organization, being denied the chance of insuring a state property and given to a private company. But under a very corrupt NPP government led by Nanado, it has happened. And government is going to IMF for financial help. It says the arrest Ken Oforiatta for denying SIC the chance of insuring the government ambulances that were imported and giving them to Enterprise Insurance, a private company which Ken Oforiatta has shares in. That's coming from, let me do some more. Justice Bonyo says, good evening. Oh, okay, that's not good evening, good morning. The rate at which the country is deteriorating, we must start thinking about the country all over again. President and his men and women came to destroy the progress of the country. That's Olanyo Inakwetia. That's Justice Bonyo actually, messing them up. There are several other messages. I'll try and go through a bit more as we go along in the show. But if you just join us, the mother of all talks with Alhaji and Alhaji. We're moving on to the discussion around the comments that have been attributed to Sir Hope Sinado. I wanted to start with Solo, but I have to start with Gabi for one reason or the other. So, Gabi.
Ladies first.
So, Gabi will start.
Ladies first. Ladies first.
So he can respond to me.
I'll respond to you.
Alan Chief Campaigner. I think Mr. Hope Sinado actually came to affirm what we've always believed exists in the NPP. The only thing that he did differently is perhaps to show us the permutations within which it is orchestrated and planned. At the work to support the what was your march called? 1 million man march. It was called what? Owusu. So at the Owusu march, he and his friends decided to storm Kumasi to galvanize support for Honorable Alan Chairman to be the next flag bearer of the NPP. At the podium, a lot of speakers came to say what they want to say, but the one whose conversation today is our topic is one who came to tell us in a descriptive manner how the permutation is done. And the permutation simply means that he solo, in his outfit, depicts a man from the north. Unfortunately, in the NPP, a man like him, with the experience, the knowledge, the credibility, and everything, can never aspire to become a president of this country. He will always go as a second hand, a vice. And then he makes references to tradition. It goes from Dankwa to Buzia. It will bounce back, and then they'll take a Dombo as a deputy. It went again to another Buzia, then it came to a Dankwa, and then they put another Nombo as the deputy. Point is, if you are Northerner of Northern extraction in the NPP, and you aspire to be anything apart from a vice president, understand that per the traditions of this political party, you can never rise beyond that. And even for you to become a vice president, there is a deliberate policy to make sure that they get to a vice president level just so that they can assume a certain national character and not the Achim, Ashanti, Akan predominance that they are known for. So, to all NPP supporters, especially those of you coming from the north, they've already told you where your level is. And at the level of a vice president, only one man can get there, or one woman can get there. So all of you who have told the NPP line thinking that this party is for you, this party obviously is not for you. And that the Akan dominance is real and is in existence. Who is Dankwa and who is Buzia? Achim and Ashati. Not even Fantis. And Nzemes. I ventured into this narrative. Strictly Ashantis and Achim. And that is the history that has played out in this NPP from the 60s, from the 50s, up to date. Now, does it augur well for this country? Obviously not. Because from the time of independence, the character that His Excellency Dr. Kwame Nkrumah assumed for this nation is one that respects the views and abilities of each and every tribe. One that allows us to foster in peace and in harmony, where our forward progress is not dependent on our tribes, but more or less about hard work, resilience, intellect, and how we push the patriotic narrative of this country. The NPP has that formula turned on its head. That is why our chiefs of the NPP can tell you things like "Yejiyamai" or "Mani Yeyedia." To it, we are claiming our lands when your territory doesn't extend beyond Ashanti region and Eastern region. Which lands where are you going to claim? I am a Guan. My ancestors span from the south all the way to the north. My lineage covers a lot of smaller other tribes, the Gonjas, the Lattes, the Kwobos, all of them are Manawutu. But we have one dominant tribe called Guan, even though we are little different pockets making up that group. So some of us even are in Oti region. So when I hear people whose boundary exists beyond two regions shout and say things like "Yejiya mine, Yejiya mine," I find it very amusing. I always ask myself, so when the Guans also say that, yes, Yejiya mine, where will you go? And especially when we are the origins of the land, where will you go? In this modern contemporary era, which land, if we sack you right now, where will you go? Nowhere. So know your level. We appreciate that your political party decides that you take some small groupings, assume a bigger, holistic, overhyped view of yourselves, just to sell yourself as a national political party. Well, in actual fact, you are nothing more than original parties. But, Sena, that narrative also is dangerous to the cohesion of a nation. For we in the NDC, we respect everybody irrespective of your tribe, your gender. For the NDC, it doesn't matter whether you are Ewe, it doesn't matter whether you are Fanti, it doesn't matter whether you are Gan, whether you are a Gonja from Bole, a Fanti from Cape Coast, you could be from Elmina, wherever that you come from. The seat of the presidency is available to anybody who is a Ghanaian and of sound mind, as is enshrined in the Constitution, and not the people who come from Eastern region and Ashanti region. the dominance of the Ashantis and the Achims in NPP for a long time, I think for the past, let's even use the current period that we're in, which is the Fourth Republican Constitution era, for the largest part has been these two. I want to ask the NPP, can't you find any other tribe apart from these two to pop up as flag bearer? If you take the array of leaders in the current administration, you have Nitiwul, you have Interior, you have a lot of men and women, even from the Ewa tribe, you have Amewu. So you have other people who have potential to assume leadership roles in the in your political party. Why mustn't necessarily be the lineages of the Dankwa faction or the Buzia faction? You limit your own selves and you deceive the Ghanaian public for them to believe that this party is a national party with a national agenda, when they are nothing beyond a regional political party that has found some tentacles in using other tribes to achieve their political aims. And what Mr. Hossein Adoya did was to give us the true facts of how the permutations are done and how it is orchestrated to relieve this nation of to showcase who actually becomes a flag bearer of their political party. So I want to advise all the other tribes, in conclusion, to advise all the other tribes, the Ewas in NPP, the Gonjas, the Dagatis, the Dagaris, the Dagombas, all the other tribes, the Bonos, you can put, I didn't hear your tribe commanders mentioned, all of them, they should start advising themselves. And as I said, we are registered in Ashanti region. They should register and change from following these people, because the agenda is one. It is either the Achim agenda or the Ashanti agenda. It is never the Ghana agenda. I'm done.
Thank you. Just a few messages. This is Elliot Ugbe, who says that now that Anado has realized that Bawumia is an empty barrel just like himself, he's now asking for God's intervention when they are the cause of the problems we are currently facing. But we thank God. Now, Mahama still has the nation at heart. A few days ago, he had to pay off the remaining amount to acquire a vast land for a Muslim community in the Ashanti region, which should tell us all that Mahama is not a selective person, but a person meant for all to benefit from. I'll go to Solo for his views on this. I think you were there, right?
Yes, Sena, I was there, and I'm very surprised the comments that have been made this morning. It's not good for nation cohesion. It's highly tribal, and I don't think that is what Hope Sena sought to do. The thing is, I don't remember the last time Buzia turned into an Ashanti. So if you're talking about Dankwa Buzia, and you refer Buzia as an Ashanti, then I don't know where she's coming from. Buzia remains a Bono. And that is one of the factual inaccuracies that our brothers from the and sisters from the NDC always wants to foist on the NPP. When was the last time the NDC chose an Ashanti person to lead them? By logic, does it mean the NDC are boss Ashantis? When Ashanti region is the second region in terms of votes, that gives the NDC the highest amount of votes. Currently, after Greater Accra, is Ashanti region. But when was the last time the NDC considered an Ashanti? I mean, do 4 attempts to contest an election, hell is breaking loose, because for them, they see him as an outsider. It's not a party that wants to do a nationalistic or put on a national pusher. Now, coming back to our work, see, a lot of developments are taking place, and we can only build a good party when we are truthful to ourselves. If we begin to behave like ostriches, we always have problems. How did we get to the Owusu walk? I mean, in 2014, then there was this group that emerged as Friends of Bawumia. You understand, the vice president, trying to project the vice president ahead of everyone. Then you had the late Sir John, may his soul rest in peace wherever he is, also go on radio and say, Dankwa Dombo Buzia tradition. Dankwes have had years, Buzias have had years, and it's now the turn of Dombo. And who is the Dombo? The Dombo is the vice president representing them. So it followed. Then you had recently the majority leader also coming with his own narrative that it's time for an order. You had the chief whip, another also weighs into it, says it's now for an order. Then you have a lot of people. Napo comes in, and also the vice president. You have Vincent Asefo comes in, and also the vice president. And a host of leaders want to meet, goes round with the vice president and endorses him when the party has not even open nomination. And the party, somewhere in July of 2021, had come out with a code of ethics as to how we would behave days leading to the presidential election. So we sat back and said, well, we were law-abiding members of the party, and that we would wait till such an appropriate time that the party would open nominations. Then the market women in the Ashanti region said, no way, we are the grassroots, the taxi drivers, the farmers, the Swami magazine people, the students said, no, we believe that in the NPP, it is a competence that we look out to. We don't know this one is coming from this part of the country, this one is coming from that part of the country. And so we believe that when nominations are opened, the Trade and Industry Minister, based on what he has done at the Trade and Industry Ministry, we would follow him. And that if we have seen people openly endorsing the vice president, flouting party code of conduct, then we would rather heed to the advice of the president when he was giving COVID update that we needed to exercise, to therefore go on the street and exercise our body to show some level of commitment towards the Trade and Industry Minister. So they walked. Now, I have told you that before we got to this point, people had all of a sudden introduced some narrative into our tradition, Dankwa Dombo Buzia tradition, and we had moved from the UP tradition. Mind you, when this party was formed, when we came NPP, we had always preached the United Party as our base, as our ideology, the UP as our tradition. All of a sudden, just to fit a certain narrative, they decided to abandon the UP tradition and then go for a gate system, the Dankwa Dombo Buzia tradition. And when you ask them who is representing Dankwa, they say the current president. Who is representing Buzia, they say former President Kufuor. And you ask yourself, how does former President Kufuor relate to Dr. Buzia? Is it because of the fact that he served in his administration? If that is the argument, then in whose administration did the current president serve in Dankwa's administration for you to link him to Dankwa? So the whole thing didn't make sense to anybody. The only available sense or the only tradition that we know is the UP, which was an amalgamation of political parties that came together. You had the Northern People's Party, you had the Anlo Youth, you had the Muslim Association, and Shifi Mokwe. So if today you are telling us that we have the Dankwa Dombo Buzia tradition, where would you place the Shifi Mokwe? Where would you place the Anlo Youth? Where would you place the Muslim Association? And therefore, there was a need to always restrict ourselves to the UP tradition, which believes in the private harnessing individual energies to develop the country, private sector orientation. That is what the UP tradition stands for. And so what Sena sought to do, or he did, was to use their own argument, the argument they have been making today, to nail them. And indeed, if there is anything that we have to say about Hussein, it is the fact that what he said has rather reset the party into its original mode. Now people are saying that, hey, we don't have to go the tangent of Dankwa Dombo Buzia tradition, but rather we should restrict ourselves to the UP tradition. Where were all those people who sat back when people were going on with Dankwa Dombo Buzia tradition? Dankwa Dombo Buzia tradition, was it to fit a certain narrative to advantage a prospective candidate? If that was the case, then that was shut down last Saturday. And so the NPP is never a tribal party. It's a party that I have never heard the last time nominations were opened and people from a particular part of this country were restricted from contesting. Indeed, in 1998, Malik Alhassan Yakubu contested. Nobody restricted him. The late Vice President Aliu Muhammad contested. It is about selling your message. It is about appealing to the masses. Don't forget, you are not only choosing a candidate to lead you for leading sake. You are choosing a candidate that will be able to deliver you power. That will be able to deliver you power. My brother here was talking about we are only interested in power. I wonder what the NDC is up for. If the NDC is not interested in coming to power, then they must forget about doing party politics. Every political party seeks political power to change the course or the destiny of a country. So clearly, the NPP believes that everybody is equal before the law. You can contest at any given time. But we must not lose the sight of the fact that every serious political party, you choose your leader from where you have your base. I mean, you go to the Conservative Party in the UK. When last did they choose anybody outside England? Because they have the base in England. So that it propels you to a certain level. And that is how come always, every political party tries to get where a candidate, a competent candidate, from where he has the large numbers. And there is nothing wrong about that. So our brothers can cash in as much as possible. I mean, the last time we did the greatest tribal politics in this country was in 2004, when Yana unfortunately left the scene. That was when I witnessed tribal politics. Every inch the NDC had, it was all about tribal politics. And that was the period, 2004 was the period a sitting government had the greatest percentage in terms of winning. So tribal politics, it does not help. If you are going to go that way and you want to lambast the Ashantis in your course of delivery, don't forget the constituency that you have a lot of Ashantis there, probably some of them voted for you. Then should I, by your own logic, go back to the Ashantis and say, hey, hear what Gabriella is saying? She does not need your vote.
That was not what I said.
And now you are talking about what you have. So what did Hobson explicitly say that the Dombos are relegated to the vice president position? It's interpretation that you have given it to it. And I am also interpreting your own view about this subject matter. That by your own saying, you believe that Ashantis are minnows. They do not matter. A region that has given you 653,000 votes per the last elections, you want to discount them in this? Now, Sena, the truth of the matter is that whether you like it or not, the MPP, by our own arrangement, always knows who will be the next flag bearer at any given time. We go to conference to only confirm who will take over from the obvious flag bearer when he exits the scene. Indeed, in 1992, when we were going for conference, we knew without any shred of doubt that Professor Edubwany will emerge as a winner. But when we did not know that when Prof leaves the scene, who will take over from Prof? In 1996, we knew when Prof decided, when Prof was wobbly, we knew J. Kufuor could take over, and indeed he did, and he confirmed that in 1998. So in 1998 conference in Sunyani, what we did not know was who would take over from President Kufuor when he exits the scene, and that was when the current President Ronaldo emerged on the scene. Same way in 2007 when we were going for conference, we knew exactly who was going to win, that there was nothing that was going to change the narrative of Ronaldo winning the flag bearership. What we did not know was the fact that when he exits, who will take over? It is the same principle that is guiding us. It is not a jumping key or here and there. Hey, but today are people discounting vice president office as a mean office? Me sitting down here, if you say my whole entire life, the position that you give it to me is vice presidential office, I'll be okay. People don't want to respect the office, the number 2 gentleman of the land. So, look, the NPP respects everyone. We will go into the conference. We would elect Alan Donko. There is no doubt about it. We know our brothers are so much scared of Alan because the kind of firepower he brings on board. My brother was discounting one district, one factory, 125 of it. It's unprecedented. As we speak, Commander Sugar Factory is on the verge of coming back live. Senior Comrade Mr. Pratt was talking about African unity. What have we done? Mr. Alan Donko played an instrumental role in bringing Africa Continental Free Trade Area to Ghana. So Professor Mills started, Mr. Alan Chemantin made sure the dream was realized. And way beyond Professor Mills, that dream had even started. Okay. People have started from somewhere. And now we have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area head office in Ghana. Go to the pharmaceutical companies and ask them the contribution of the Trade and Industry Minister. Go to the MPP. See, people now see the MPP being attractive and things, it just came by chance. Young individuals, as the president of the Young Executive Forum, those times, who were men in this country, people were so much afraid of General Rawlings and his brutalities that they could not own up to say we were MPP. Those were the days that the lives of Alan Donko came out boldly and contributed to the success and the sustenance of this political party. So if today, having waited, look, in 1996, he was going to contest for the Flagbeership of the NPP. Appear Minka Dems, don't go for Joseph, had to beg him because they were the ones controlling the finances of the party. The Young Executive, they were the ones mobilizing resources for the party. He would have won hands down. But people appealed to him. In 2007, when the election was supposed to go on a runoff, you were in this country, a runoff, anything could happen. And in fact, in 2008, the election of 2008 tells us that if he had gone for the runoff, he would have won. Because if you remember, in 2008, President Ronaldo was leading Professor Mills in the first round. Is that not the case? But he lost in the runoff. So by that logic, if Alan had contested the president in the second round, he would have won. But he said, for the sake of the unity of the party, and also to protect the scarce resource of the party, I am allowing my elder brother to go. And that is how come, or that was how come the current president then said, Alan, you will follow me. So there is nothing wrong with that. And you see the numbers that you saw on the ground. And I'm happy your reporters were there. You can take report from them. These were genuine people from the market, from the ordinary men that were chanting. And if you know what they were saying, our brothers have to be worried. Because if they decide today to mobilize people, I'm telling you, they are not going to get 10% of what we got. Okay. Now they are doing their internal elections. People are being beaten left, right, center. People are being maimed.
Really?
Go to Techima South. Go to Techima South. Ashanti region, just before I go to this studio. Slaps flying left, right, center. Because of branch elections, we have not even gotten to constituency level. The new Patriotic Party will elect its flag bearer. We will come back, there will be cooperation after competition, and we will come as a united force. And definitely, I wonder when people say that Ghanaians were lied to. NPP deceived Ghanaians for them to vote for it. So anytime they vote for the NDC, do you deceive them or you tell them the truth? We should not belittle the intelligence of the Ghanaian. The Ghanaian believe so much in the NPP. That's why when we come, anytime we are in power, they expect so much from us. They don't expect so much from the NDC.
Okay. So, thank you.
So, my brother, it is a done deal. Allah will be your next leader. Hobson said something to kill a mischief, and indeed what he said has really corrected the system, and that now reason is prevailing. Party elders are requesting that we go back to our UP tradition. We have adhered to that. Going forward, all of us must behave within the code of ethics. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Solo. 2 messages. This one is from Dr. Kofa Segbefia, who says, Sena, good morning. Let us all in humility tell the president of this country that prayer and fasting cannot be substitute for hard work and application of common sense. Lincoln in Akwetiman says the omnipotent God is judging those who claimed in opposition that they are the best and can open bank account for every Ghanaian when given power. Cheap talk. Lies have been exposed. President Nana Akufo-Addo and Bawumia. Bernice Nati says, Uncle Kwesi Pratt, I'm still waiting to read a book from you. Anytime I listen to you, I remember the first time I saw you. That was way back in the office of Joyce Ayi when she was the Secretary of Information. Time has really flown past. Still waiting to read your book. Amagbeto Adasani says, Mr. Pratt, more grace to your elbow. They listen attentively to all that you say. But as Kwesi Pratt is saying it, so they feel shy to put it into practice. Dunyo Daniel says, and please, 2023, we the youths are going to make sure the country is not going to be at peace if the leadership team of the country is not going to take action to call the government to order. Alasan Yakubu says, and none of the two candidates of the NPP is fit for the president position. They all have dirty hands in this NPP government. They haven't got the men. The NDC will borrow them, our women. Well, still quick.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sena. And I'm actually even surprised that they have the moral courage, to even be daring to even have the leadership of this country again. I mean, you preside over this abysmal failure. You preside over this crisis of what you call seismic proportion that we have never seen. And you still have no shame. You still have no shame. You are thinking about what? Succeeding yourselves. Instead of actually apologizing to the people of Ghana and declaring that what you have done is the greatest, what you call, calamity that has been seen. You are busy competing among yourself, thinking that the people of Ghana would be naive enough to even trust any of you. That, for me, that actually is a shocker. That, for me, is the biggest shocker. It simply tells you that we're dealing with people who are simply incorrigible. They are not capable of even realizing what problem they have. I mean, if you are a part of a government that has seen this level of failure, that has brought this country on its knees, a country that today has been reduced to what you call a butt of ridicule and joke, the only country in the world whose currency is doing better than our currency is what, Sri Lanka. And you have the one who is supposed to be in charge of trade. Meanwhile, trade is actually supposed to be powering what he is boasting about, industrialization. Industrialization. A country that basically has become nothing but what you call a nation of importation. And you are joking that you are setting up, you are transforming this country by industrialization. What industrialization? Basic things that every single government has done, which is using what you call support system to as it were, stimulate production, which NDC did without even thinking about it. Supporting what you call the pharmaceutical sector, setting up industry, actually setting up real industries. Not going to put what you call a billboard on people's company that have been in existence from Kwame Nkrumah to today. Using, what's the name, Exim Bank, set up by the previous NDC government, whose money now is available, and you are using it now to distribute for political purposes, to deceive people that somehow you are doing something about industry. And you are boasting about Alan. Alan is an integral part of the shame and the abysmal failure. He's not different. He's not different. Don't even create the impression that he's better than what you call the calamitous vice president. They are both the same. They're both the same. There's no difference. There is no difference between them. They are all an integral part of the gross failure. And all of them should actually have no even moral authority to be thinking about the leadership of this country. Not to talk about the others who are possibly even thinking about it. In fact, to be honest with you, among them, if there is one that actually I think is sounding like possibly having learned, having had some evolution. If among them I'm listening to them, one that's sounding like having an evolution, and I call it an evolution of consciousness. Among them, I would say it's Kwesi Japan. Among them, he's the one that's sounding to me like somebody who has actually had an evolution. You see, I told you that it's a group whose DNA is detrimental to the well-being of a nation. That's why they have shown this through their history. I say, the biggest regret, and of course, you see, we love our country. And as long as these two parties have been the biggest party, you always want to wish them, listen, as much as possible. I mean, the best should emerge on the other side as well. I've not been a member of the NPP, never been part of the family. But as long as they have a stake in our country, you always want to wish that the best should emerge among them. I think the biggest regret I see all the time is that Kwame Pieni never emerged as a leader of the party. That was the finest they could have had. I remember back in 92. 92, I was, before the election in 92, in the wake of all the conversation leading to that election. Listen, I remember I once read a statement. And when I read the statement then was like what you call the political mouthpiece of the NPP at the time. Very, very, one of the powerful newspapers they had. And I read a column and I started reading this right from the beginning all the way to the end. And at the end, I saw the name Kwame. I told myself, wow. I mean, even though he was on the other side, you could see a genuine patriot. You could see somebody who cared about his country. Not this bunch of arrogant people who think the country is their property. And all they think about is power. And when I mention the power, you think that political party, you think looking for raw power is what the political party is about. A political party, your intention is to be able to do what lifts a nation. Not when you take over power in 2001. And what was your preoccupation? That by the time you finish with the fast-track prosecution of your opponent, you would have literally turned the country into one-party system. Because your ultimate aim is not to be able to do something for Ghana. It's to destroy whoever you perceive to be your enemy so that you can hold on to power. And what do you do with that power? Nothing. That's why we are in crisis today. Because your real capacity is not to be able to do something to lift nation. Your capacity is simply to hold on power so that you can accumulate as much as possible because you think the country is your property. That's your problem. So whether it's Baumia or what's the name, Alan, it's the same. The value is the same. Both abysmal. Both liabilities, complete disaster on the two sides. As for my friend Kenyan Japan, what I can say is I can understand if this party has collapsed this much. Anybody will definitely think that me too I can aspire for leadership. Because that's what your party has become. A party, no, generally, that's what you've done. You brought this country to its knees. A bunch of empty barrels, that's what you do. You boast and boast and boast. When you are given opportunity, you show total disaster that you are. That's what you have turned this country into. We are on our knees. On our knees. You lack ideas. You don't know what to do. And you are busy still shouting about breaking the eight. Believe that somehow you'll be able to do whatever you do, then you can emerge back into leadership. I'm saying that you should actually be feeling ashamed. You should be feeling ashamed about what you've done and go on your knees and apologize to the people of this country for the disaster that you have created. Instead of thinking about coming back to power. Now, the thing about what Hobson has said, as far as I'm concerned, I feel that our friends need to evolve. The NPP family must evolve. I mean, if you watch what you call the traditional opposition that they've had, which started with Kwame Nkrumah and now what you call NDC. You can see it's a tradition that actually is all encompassing. It doesn't matter who you are. That's why, for example, under Jerry Rawlings, J.A. Kufuor was part of the government. We don't have a problem. P.V. Oben was one of the greatest we had, both in the PNDC and the NDC. That is who we are. No matter where you come from, as long as you have a contribution to make, you are considered a worthy member to be able to bring on board. That's why you have no issue with President Mills coming from the Akan fraternity. You have Mahama, who is coming out from the north. You have Jerry Rawlings, who came from Volta region. That's who we are. A Congress that believes that, listen, we all have one nation, one destiny. They are not special people. There's nothing like we are special and you are not. But your belief is that there are some that are special, others are not. But that's who you are. So Hobson is saying actually is simply bringing out what it is that is hidden within your DNA. The fact that you look down on some and feel some are special. Some are only good to become what you call vices. Others are special to become what you call the top. That is who you are. That is your DNA. Hobson is simply amplifying it. So you need to evolve. You need to go through an evolution. To stop thinking like how people who do not have the proper light think. Who think that some are special, others are. No, there's nothing like that. And that ties into a conversation that Kwesi began about some of the tragedies that we're having on the continent. And Kwesi, I think that what you said, which is so true, but the biggest thing that is lacking on this continent, which unfortunately our friends represent the worst for, I'm talking about the NPP, is what I call lack of love for nation, lack of love for community, lack of love for the greater good. I mean, you can actually have the most educated people, but if you do not have enough love for your nation, enough love for your continent, enough love for your race, you will always mortgage the interests of your people, interests of your nation. Why? Was Dankwa not a very educated man? A great educated man. But do the declassified files of the CIA not show that he was prepared to be an agent of the CIA to go against his own country? Yes. So it doesn't matter how much educated you are. So the problem of this country is not just lack of education, it's lack of love and lack of patriotism. That really is a problem. And lack of vision. Vision is what enables you to see the big picture. So we see, no matter what our resources may be, no matter how much educated we may be, the real difficulty of this continent is that there is not enough love of nation, love of neighbor, love of community, and love of the well-being of the bigger, and putting ourselves secondary and putting the whole ahead of us. That is what leadership should fundamentally be about. And unfortunately, that is what our friends here do not understand. They believe that leadership is about hype. Then he came here, Alhaji has done this, that, and that. Please give us a break. Abysmal failure, just as Bawumia. That's what he is, abysmal failure, just like Bawumia.
Okay, Mr. Kwesi, thank you. Positive change in Medina is joining us. Every leader must understand the basic requirements expected of them, of their people, and the ability to speak to their people and be honest about the happenings in their life. Ghana is broke because there are no systems put in place. The government has also taken advantage of the situation and making capital out of suffering. What a sad country we live in. So we're talking about the comments of Hobson Adoye of the new Patriotic Party, the kind of actions extracted from within the party and the conversation it has generated. The mother of all talk shows, Alhaji And Alhaji, live on Pan-African television and also live on Radio Gold. I'll go to Mr. Pratt next.
In a sense, I think that you're being most unfair to Hobson Adoye. I think that you're being most unfair to Hobson Adoye because the kind of analysis he does is done everywhere. Dangerous as it is, unproductive as it is, I hear that kind of analysis from everywhere. Those who argue that you need a Muslim-Christian ticket fit in the same category as Hobson Adoye. Those who argue that you need a female-male partnership to win an election fit into the same category as Hobson Adoye. Those who argue that you need a Northerner and a Southerner, a combination of a Northerner and a Southerner, fit into the same category. You understand? And yet today, we have all singled out Hobson Adoye for lashing. When indeed, there are so many of us who have this lopsided view of politics, who do not see politics as a means of galvanizing the strength and wisdom of a population to accelerate their development, who see politics as cosmetic, who see politics as some strange permutations which will deceive the population. Who says that if you have a Northerner as president and a Southerner as vice president, it will certainly lead to development? It wouldn't. Who says that if you have a Muslim-Christian ticket, Muslims would achieve their ambitions and so on? And our history clearly bears out that that is not the truth. When under Mr. Rawlings, we declared a Muslim holiday, what was the ticket in power? It was Christian. You understand? Today, where you have, because I don't believe that is the reality, but that is what is presented. When you have a Christian-Muslim ticket, that's what we are being told. Let us accept it for what it is. What deeds have the Muslim community made in our society today under this dispensation? And indeed, the survey which was carried out by Global Info Analytica clearly suggests that a lot more Muslims are dissatisfied with this administration's work, to the extent that if there was a poll in the new Patriotic Party today, a lot more Muslims will vote for Alan Chamartin than for Mahmoud Bawumia. Okay, so those permutations, they are cheap, they are easy, they are meant to deceive. Okay, but even put that aside, what is the substantial difference? Between what Hobson Adoye said and what Osafo Mafu said about those from resource
Resource rich regions.
Exactly. What is the substantial difference? What's the substantial difference?
The value is the same.
So, look, I think that we should be honest enough and we should develop a criteria of measurements which does not do what we are doing today. We are hanging Hobson Adoye for saying what everybody else has said and what most people believe. Today, don't go far. National Democratic Congress, those people who want to challenge John Mahama, what are they saying? I've heard one of them say that if the National Democratic Congress has to win elections in Ghana, its candidate must come from Ashanti. Haven't you heard it? What did we say about that? Why are we hanging Hobson Adoye? What's the substantial difference between that and what Hobson Adoye has said? There are two prominent persons who are offering themselves as challengers to John Mahama. What is their message? It is time for Ashantis. Am I lying? If I'm lying, tell me that I'm lying. I'll just get up and go. And what is the difference between that and what Hobson Adoye is saying? Look, ethnicity, what some people call tribalism, has very dangerous consequences for all of us. Countries have gone up in flames as a result of that. A lot of people think that in Rwanda, when you talk about ethnic groups and so on, we are talking about language and culture. It's not true. In Rwanda, the Tutsis and the Hutus who fought speak the same language. The distinguishing feature in Rwanda is vocation. Those who are engaged in plant agriculture and those who are engaged in animal husbandry. And yet they fought, and 1 million people lost their lives. So let us wake up. You understand? This ethnic difference, what does it mean? If Nana Akufo-Addo summons his cabinet, I'm sure that if you go there, you will find a Fanti, you will find an Ashanti, you will find a Dagomba, you will find a Gonja, you will find Eves, and so on. When they meet in that cabinet, what do you think they're thinking about? The preservation of their government. How they can break the 8 and so on. And then they come out and they confuse us about ethnicity, and we, the victims of their rule, are fighting ourselves on the basis of ethnicity. And they who govern us don't care about ethnicity. They are united as a ruling class. You understand? We should wake up and ignore all these charlatans who want to divide our country on the basis of ethnicity. Why? President Mahama's government. You found the Nzemas there. You found Fantis there. You found Gas there. You found Evers there. Ally? They are united as NDC. They are pursuing a common objective. Why should we, who are either beneficiaries or victims of their actions, divide ourselves on the basis of tribe? Doesn't make sense. My very good friend, Sergeant Aloroge Akatapori, in 1982, said something very profound. He said that in Ghana, there are only 2 tribes, the rich and the poor. Finish. As far as Aloroge was concerned, there are only 2 tribes in Ghana, the rich versus the poor. So all this is why you are in Zema, no, you are not in Zema, you are Ga, and so on. It's all meaningless and useless, and it doesn't address the fundamental issues which confront us. If you have a Sisala as president, how does his being Sisala make sure that utility tariffs don't go up? If you have a Gomwa, Fanti Gomwa as president, how does that make sure that next week the price of fuel will not go up? So let us rise above this pettiness and move on. After Hosna Doye said this, come and see. All kinds of knives drawn. People who want to distance themselves from him because he has now become what? How many of them who are making all these posturings don't believe in what Hosna Doye said? How many of them in private conversations will not tell you the same thing? How many of the people who today want to lynch Hosna Doye will not say the same things in private conversations? Let's get over this. We are lucky. You know, Ghana is a very lucky place. Ethnicity has only recently become a factor. It wasn't. It didn't matter. One of the reasons for that was the education system that Nkrumah introduced, especially at the secondary school level. All of us went to boarding schools. In the boarding school, you didn't even know what the ethnicity of the person sleeping next to you was. It didn't matter. You had an Ever man sleeping on top of a Fanti man, and had a Dagoma man sleeping on the next bed. That's how we were raised. We developed friendship not on the basis of ethnicity, but on the basis of human quality and so on. That is what Nkrumah did to our generation. Unfortunately, over the last few years, the foolishness and recklessness of ethnicity is creeping back into our politics. And this foolishness and recklessness is exactly what it is. It doesn't make sense. If you listen to what Hosna Doye said, and you want to take him serious, my brother, you know something? One, the whole of the Western region is left out of the analysis. The whole of the Central region is left out of the analysis. The whole of the Greater Accra region is left out of the analysis. And the whole of the Volta region is left out of the analysis.
OT2.
OT2. true, Otitu. Now, how can you de facto these 5 regions and win an election in Ghana? So the analysis is poor from the very beginning. It's so poor. Anybody doing this kind of analysis is doomed to fail. You understand what I'm saying? Anybody doing this kind of analysis, and yet the man feels courageous enough to stand in front of a crowd and speak through a microphone this very damaging, utters these very damaging statements through a microphone. That's a problem. What makes him so confident that he can say these things through a microphone in front of cameras? That is what we must be looking at. Is it that he's in circles where these conversations are considered normal, and therefore, when he comes public, he forgets himself that he's in a different place and can say these things? You understand? And I know, and everybody sitting here knows, that these conversations are very normal in some circles. Today, in Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana, 2022, somebody who wishes to be president of the Republic of Ghana can actually open his mouth and say that you have to remove John Mahama as flag bearer because he's not an Ashanti. Sena, can you believe that? That because if you say only an Ashanti can lead the NDC to victory, you are saying that John Mahama should be removed simply because he's not Ashanti. And it's all right. I mean, I don't see the kind of anger and rejection and revolt which is associated with what Hobson Adoye said, with what others are saying and doing. It's the same. Look, who says? I firmly believed, absolutely believe that women are disadvantaged in this country. I believe that in this country, we are practicing a system of patriarchy. And I believe that the potential for development is limited simply by limiting women's participation in national affairs. But, hey, am I foolish enough to think that you can just go and pick any woman and make president or running mate, and that resolves the problem? I'm not that foolish. I'm not that stupid. Otherwise, I would have become the campaign manager of a woman who contested the elections some time ago. I don't want to mention the woman. But I refuse to be campaign manager of that woman. Because I know that that woman is not a representation of women. There are better women than her. You understand? And even that woman does not believe in women's emancipation. So tokenism is something that we should avoid in our politics. And all this, bottom line, is tokenism. And it doesn't matter whether it happens in the NPP or it happens in the NDC or in the CPP. It's the same thing that we need to condemn. Finish. You think there's something else to add? No. Tokenism, ethnicity is horrible. In whatever party it is expressed, it is the same thing. Finish.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. In fact, the part that paid me was that they introduced him as Hobson Adoye. And he didn't even mention about tariff. I wonder how we will mention your background.
You see, this thing, if you don't take time and you discuss it in a certain way, it pulls you into the same trap.
Yeah.
The fact that he's called Yauvi doesn't mean that he should be pushing for an ever presidential candidate or an ever running mate.
But let's just say the evers are there. Hadi from Big Farm says the Nanado Bawumia government has lost its credibility with respect to economic management. Government is about honesty and truthfulness. This Nanado Bawumia government, however, fancy blatantly lying to the good people of Ghana. They promise to transform our economy, and today all we see is the free fall of the cedi, skyrocketing fuel prices, and galloping inflation. We have time to take some quick comments on what has happened in Kenya now. Okay. And okay, I think this one I can start anyhow. I don't expect much disagreement. He just concluded. He just concluded. So I can't start with you. So let me start with you, Solo.
Kenya, you mean?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, disaster waiting to happen. It's unfortunate. The people of Kenya should be guided by history. And for me, the two leading contenders, Ruto and then Odinga, must know that if they sacrifice the blood of ordinary or innocent Kenyans, they wouldn't have done anything. And I like the quote from Mr. Pratt associated to Akatapori, that there are only two tribes we have, the rich and the poor. Ruto and Odinga, none of their immediate families will be drawn into this whole battle. It is the ordinary Kenyan that will be drawn into it. What are the issues? Was it the case that somebody rigged the elections? Because for you to have 4 of the 7 commissioners saying that there is something wrong with the declaration of the results, for me it's problematic. What is wrong? I would want to urge the Kenyans to take it easy, go to court. Whatever information they have, they must present it, submit or present a solid case that will prove beyond all reasonable doubt that indeed something untoward happened. But if, on the contrary, there was nothing wrong with the whole declaration process, then I will have problem with the 4 commissioners that they have not been good citizens of Kenya. Tension is very rife. If you go there right now, in most of the suburbs, I mean, people are just preparing to slaughter themselves. That is what is happening now. I have friends there, you call them and say, hey, we need your prayers. At the end of the day, it's not the prayer that's going to do anything. It is about the attitude of people that want to sacrifice ordinary men and women. Just 2007, 2008, you slaughtered 1,200 people. As though that was not enough. And what is happening now clearly shows that no one is going to accept it. Ruto will not accept any overturning of results. Neither is Odinga prepared to go by it. But we will urge them that they must behave maturely. The country is also wobbling in abject poverty like we are doing now. Inflation skyrocketing, unemployment at all-time high. And so they need cool heads to prevail. If they decide to fight, I mean, look at the countries that are surrounding them. You have South Sudan, Somalia, Uganda, Tanzania. I mean, what is good happening in these countries for you to sacrifice your men? If they cross border to these countries, how are they going to survive? So it's better for Kenyans to know that in the midst of all these uncertainties, they will come out stronger and then show to the Eastern Bloc, East African Bloc, that at least they can be a shining example for the rest. I wish them the best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you. In fact, the language itself, in fact, the Kenyan Post is reporting that MPs from the Western are saying we are not boarding the Kenyan Kwanzaa train. We will die with Raila. So the language is not so helpful.
You're going to fight. That one, you don't need any soothsayer to tell you that blood will be shed.
Mr. Kwesi.
It's a sad reality, and you know, just maybe taking off from the last part of what Kwesi Pratt said. A nation is like a family, and it's important at every moment to understand that there's always going to be the need for bringing everybody on board in order to make it happen. So for me, I don't really have a problem with arrangement that takes into consideration what you call regions, and that takes into consideration the need for some inclusion. You can't have a situation where a nation is ruled by just one group to the exclusion of every other. Even if they are the most brilliant people, it simply don't. Because it couldn't be that everybody else in the other regions are dumb. So some amount of taking into consideration, different, just like what you call the rainbow. Some belongs to the red, another to the violet, some to the yellow, some to the green. You must always have a way in which you can bring together. America, see, even to date, America takes into consideration, if you come from the north, the northern part of America, your running mate invariably is from the southern part. That is even the greatest democracy, or at least
Is it the greatest democracy?
it is. For me, it's the greatest democracy. There's no perfect system. There's no perfect system in the world. But if you're talking about democracy, I don't know any other nation that will say that they have a much more, shall I call it? It's not perfect, but it's the greatest democracy. It's not. It's the greatest democracy.
Go and talk to the black community and see whether they agree with you.
No, but that's why. That's why Obama.
Talk to the Chicanos.
No, but if it didn't have a proper democracy, Obama from Kenya will not emerge as a president of America. It takes to have a proper system to allow such to happen. As I say, it's not perfect. But the point I'm making is that there's always a need for embracing different facets of a society. You must be able to bring that on board. The situation in Kenya worries me. It worries me because you can clearly see that this is a country that clearly is divided right in the middle. And that for me is worrying. And this is not the first time this is happening. It happened in 2007. That led to deaths of thousands of people. You can see clearly that, at least, let me say one thing. I commend Odinga for at least deciding I want to go to the court. That helps. That helps. But I think going forward, this is a country, and it's not just Kenya, the rest of Africa must be taking a cue. That this, should I call it, winner take all business, we need to start thinking about it again. As Africans, we need to have a consideration of it. Because you see, it creates a situation where there's too much desperation. It's like your whole existence comes to an end. Now, as long as that continues to be, the tendency of people going to power and wanting to destroy their opponent, destroy their businesses, to consolidate themselves continues. But it's a continent that is poor. A continent that needs to be able to bring on board as many people as possible for the sake of tomorrow. So and see, unfortunately, what do? We just copy. America has had this system of multi-party, we also want to have. Britain has, we also want. It's just a copycat. We are not capable of thinking beyond our own, looking at situation and crafting system that will be able to bring together as many people as possible in order for us to be able to have a way forward. I think the Kenya situation brings that to light, and the rest of Africa must take care of it. Otherwise, this whole ethnicity undergirding the whole politics, because the politics in Africa largely has become ethnic, like Kofi rightly said. And that we must find ways of transcending it in order to be able to bring on board as many of us as possible in order to build a nation that can build our destinies together. Okay. That worries me.
Thank you. Kojochumba the Sena hopes now was sent to the rally to go and say exactly what he said. Whoever sent him knew it was going to become topical. It was going to become news. And that is what happened. Anyway, Gabi.
Well, I think they've said the most important.
Someone said that. Someone sent it. An elderly man like Hobson. Someone will send him to go and say.
They've expressed.
Above 50 years.
I think they've expressed the key issues regarding the aftermath of this election. But what was interesting for me was after the declaration of the results, when the vice president won, and then NPP apparatchiks in Ghana decided to get all excited about the possibility of a vice president taking over from the president. So the people, Kenya has done it, so we can break the 8, forgetting that we're dealing with different dynamics in both countries. The issue within the the Horn of Africa area region is quite unstable, as he mentioned. So, if they are unable to resolve the issues amicably through the court system and come to some formal conclusion on who actually governs the country, I think that it will not be too good for that area. And Ethiopia is having economic issues. Somalia, Sudan, that whole region. The only one that's doing probably better, much better, is when you come down south, it's Rwanda. But for the peaceful coexistence of you don't think they are doing better? You don't think they are doing better? Democracy.
There's no dictatorship in Africa that is worse than Rwanda. Rwanda,
that's what you two believe.
You criticize the government, you are dead. You have no opportunity of life.
I am his fan.
Okay.
You are funny.
So I cannot come and criticize. I love him.
You love
So when it gets to your turn, you can talk about it. So
It's a virtual one-party state. So. Really.
I'll bounce it off you. You can continue.
Don't continue.
No, it's his turn. Time is running out. We have to. We have to conclude.
There's not much to say. You know, this mental makeup of our leaders, which causes a lot of trouble in Africa, is expressed also in Uhuru Kenyatta, who somehow strangely came to the conclusion that his opponent, whom he criticized and told the Kenyan people that was not fit to govern, that his manifesto was useless and so on, all of a sudden had become the candidate of choice. How he came to that conclusion can only be explained from the apparent assumption that Kenya belongs to him. What the Kenyan people have done is to prove to him that it doesn't matter. He's not what he thinks he is. And that has been proven. I mean, the combination of Odinga and Kenyatta, so badly beaten in an election, even if the Supreme Court decides to reverse the results, what Ruto has done is unprecedented. You understand? I'm not a fan of Ruto. I mean, I heard his inaugural speech and say, hey, another one has come.
Even the promises, 4 million jobs within a year.
Telling people that God will solve the problem and so on. I mean,
Oh, really?
yes. You understand? So I'm not a fan of Ruto. But at least he has demonstrated that two dynasties in Kenya can be whacked, and he has whacked them.
That the power belongs to the people.
Yeah, that's the power belongs. Because his main message was that, look, I'm a hustler.
Yes.
You know, I don't come from any of the dynasties. I'm just a hustler, and so on. And look at how far he's come. So that's an important lesson. The other important thing for me just has to do with the Constitution of Kenya. The Constitution of Kenya is clear. It says the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, they don't call it the Electoral Commission, the boundaries.
Independent boundary electoral commission.
Shall declare the results. It says the chairman. Of course, there may be an assumption that before the declaration by the chairperson, some consultations may take place and so on. But those are matters that the Supreme Court will eventually, decide. Now, again, my friend and brother Fifi, that's some very beautiful analysis using the rainbow, and so on. But you say, Fifi, throughout history, the only analysis which unites is not ethnic analysis. The only analysis which unites is not religious analysis. The analysis which unites is not regional analysis. The only analysis which unites people from across gender, from across ethnicity and so on, is class analysis. Class analysis. So if we gain consciousness that we are building a nation, and that within that nation there are different elements and so on, what are the key elements you pick for nation building? Is it ethnicity? Is it religion? What is it? It's class analysis. And this has been proven throughout history. And there's no dispute about that. Anytime you use the other variables, religion, ethnicity, language, and so on, you are heading for danger. I close my case.
Thank you. Just a few messages. This one, it is always a delight listening to Honorable Kwesi. A distance in-law. He didn't know. When I hear anyone from other places, apart from this Chim ruling family like Solomon defending them, I see such people. It says, as their slave. This Komla. If Solomon says Busia is not Ashanti, you should tell us where Kufu and his candidate Alan belongs in Dankwa Busia Dombo tradition.
So we were even take it out of the equation. Because he said Dankwa Busia Dombo. Where lies the Ashantis?
This is okay. So this is Sedu who says, Sena, tell Solo not to use Britain to justify NPP tribal leadership. In the case of Britain, the Conservative Party doesn't choose its leader from other regions. but England is because the other regions are devolved, who have their own parliaments. Technically, they are not full members of the Union of the Kingdom. NPP is, he says, an account party, period. Also, Professor Mills was an account, so Solo was wrong in saying NDC has never chosen an account to lead. I think he says specifically he was raising issues with the Ashanti thing. This is, okay, so this from Mr. Frangoka in the US. Happy birthday to Mr. Cornelius Shalom Amakudi of Wager and Miss Grace Imo of Bronx, New York. Wishing them longevity and prosperity in the pool of good health and abundant grace. That's from the Frangoka. And then I end with this one, Kwesi Pratt Jnr. Sena, tell Fifi he needs to pay a visit to the diaspora and NDC to give them education in NDC politics. Some in position still don't understand NDC politics. Tell him this is a special request. 2024 should start now, please. And said billion submissions. Yeah. Well, that should conclude our show for today. And thank you. Thank you very much for making time to join us on this show today. A big thank you to you. Let me once again say a big thank you to our affiliate station. It's very important that I acknowledge them. Shine FM in Akachi 96.9, Hales FM in Adaklu 91.7, Nuwasi Radio is in Ketekrachi on 89.7, Sela Radio Dabala 97.1, Diamond FM in Tamale is on 93.7, Bewa Radio Yendi 106.5, Radio Kitawan in Saboba 95.7, Benya FM Momina 105.7, Global FM 105.1 Ho, Volta 1 TV is also on, Zeps FM 95.9 in Zebila, True FM 92.5 in Adeso, and Lamaraya FM 89.1 in Tripoli. Thank you all very much for your platforms. My name is Sena Nombo. I was joined in the studio this morning by Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jnr, who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana, Mr. Fii Quartey, who is a former minister and former member of parliament for Ketu South, and of course, Solomon Owusu, who is a member of the NPP's communication team, and Gabriella Tetteh, sitting very close to me. Oh, okay. An avowed member of the Alan campaign team.
The next flag bearer and the president of Ghana 2025.
This show was live on Pan-African television, on all our social media platforms, also live on Radio Gold. A big thank you to our 92.3 FM. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a fruitful week. And we are back same time next week.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom.